Welcome to Mystic Moon Cafe.
You're listening to Mystic Moon Cafe. The views and opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, the network, or our sponsors.
Go. One moment. It's thinking. And we are live.
All righty, we got it. We're going live. Good evening, everybody. Got another wonderful set of guests lined up for this evening, and guest hosts and the whole shebangy. How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing very well.
Good.
Excited for the show. Be good.
Whee! Definitely, yes. Love y'all's backgrounds. Joining us is Brandon Hodge from Mysterious Planchette. And we have a special Karen in kind of waiting in the wings, possibly going to join us. Just supposed to be a surprise, pop in, but we'll see how that goes.
Unfortunately, technology involves planning, so.
Right. Yes.
And as much as we like to think that musicians just jump up on stage spontaneously and just rock out an amazing guitar solo at the drop of a hat, it's always planned.
So true.
Unless it's a spontaneous possession.
Well, that's a different story.
True, very true, yes. And still that might take some planning.
Yeah, and let's not have any of that on camera tonight if we can help it.
Okay, all right. I got my good mojo bag on, and we should be good. All right. Well, who'd like to kick off? Brandon, would you like to tell us a little about yourself? And
Well, sure.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, it's a special night tonight. It is the 174th anniversary of the birth of modern American spiritualism, and we'll be talking about that. My name is Brandon Hodge. My sort of public moniker and the name of my archive, some of which you can see here behind me, is Mysterious Planchette, which is not only the name of my website, mysteriousPlanchette.com, but my various social media outlets. And it's just sort of the catch-all term for my collecting, my research, my publishing, and various endeavors that circulate in this weird, esoteric, and occult world that I have stumbled face first into. So that's what I do. I've been at this, since the late 90s, as far as the collecting and researching. I do have a BA in history from the University of Texas, which is where I got started in all this stuff. And somehow here, all these years later, we're still at it. So,
Well, that's fantastic. Now, I believe in your bio it states that you live in the very historic area there. Is your house haunted? Or have you checked?
No, I've never had any issues with that. It's so funny for the bad reputation that all these items have. And trust me, every wall of my home looks like this one. It's covered, and we'll take a little tour later in the broadcast, but as well as we can do it anyway. And I've never had any sort of occurrence. Had a paranoid mother-in-law, but and only because I know she's not listening. Yeah, I remember she sat up one night, so there was a face staring back at me, and there was literally a mirror on the other side of the room where she pointed. It was right there. It was a little like jelly cabinet with a little diamond mirror in it. Yeah. If only there was some logical explanation for what you saw.
Cool.
but yeah, we'll be trying to take a little tour tonight and talk a little bit about history. I guess I could get things started off with a rather special artifact, and tonight would just be the night to pull it out and explain what it is and what gets us all here to begin with. And hopefully there's enough light for everyone to see this. It's sort of shadow boxed, and it's kind of some dark materials. But our evening starts right here with these artifacts.
Wow.
And what everyone's looking at is a photo or a postcard of a very special cottage. I'll hold up a different version of it there. And another one here. This is the Fox Cottage in Hydesville, New York, which is just outside of Rochester, New York. And what is in the shadow box is actually a piece of the Fox Cottage. It's like a piece of rebar from the foundations that I have shadow boxed here, because the house actually doesn't exist anymore. We'll talk about its eventual fate, but it's within this home that the modern American spiritualist movement is born. And in 1848, in March of 1848, the Fox family that resides in this home begins to experience what we would term poltergeist-like activity, strange knockings and noises that to them were inexplicable. And on the evening of March 31st, 1848, that's tonight, the young girls basically confront these noises. And this is Kate and Maggie. They were young teens at the time. And they challenge the noises to essentially repeat after them. And young Kate snaps her fingers a few times, and the noise is knocked back in a identical number. And eventually they will go on to establish sort of a binary code. It wasn't once for yes, twice for no. It was actually, I think it was 3 knocks for yes initially, a little busier than our modern counterpart. But they established a binary, yes and no code to communicate with these strange noises. And then they could go on to establish other means of communication we'll talk about. And that's really the moment that we recognize the veil between worlds was breached, and the belief of modern spiritualism grew from these events. Because of the advent of the Associated Press, which had taken place in 1845, just 3 years previously, where stories that might once have remained local began to spread virally, and what we would call sort of viral spread. And so this story didn't remain just there in Hydesville. It spread, and soon the young women basically went on tour. Wow. And everywhere they went, suddenly new mediums began popping up and communicating with these strange noises. And soon, by that summer, the entire world was enraptured with the spirits.
Has it ever been proven or disproven beyond a shadow of a doubt how genuine the Fox sisters were?
Well, the Fox sisters themselves would put a few holes in their own livelihood. Later in their lives, they would basically recant all of their activities and admit that they were cracking their toe knuckles and knee joints underneath their petticoats on the hard wooden floors in order to produce these sounds. And also that there's a story about them bouncing an apple on a string, and so that they were actually the cause of the poltergeist activity, and that they had and that it was a hoax. And then there's of course an outcry over that, and then they'll recant their testimony that they gave publicly. And so it really tore spiritualism in two. But by that point, so much more had happened. I mean, that was, they were in their 40s at that point, and deep in their cups at that. And spiritualism had grown and moved so far beyond them into new modes of mediumship, which is important. It's really what gives me not only something to collect, but something to talk about tonight, because everything starts with those basic raps. But that's one thing that we don't see even in the modern paranormal world. The closest thing that we see that might be equivalent would be, say, the flashlight seance, where you unscrew a flashlight and set it on the bed and wait for it to light up and flash in response to questions. But rapping mediumship has been extinct for generations now. It's because it was supplanted and replaced by forms of mediumship that we can experience directly. And that's where we start getting into the various tools and inventions that give me something to do and keep me busy.
How would you describe rapid mediumship to people who aren't familiar with it?
Oh, that's a great question. So an early, and it's an important question because as we begin to evolve from it, we begin to see a more recognizable form of the modern seance, because an early seance might have been in a dimly lit room, but not necessarily the darkness that our modern conception of is. And we'll talk about where that comes from as we sort of progress chronologically here. But a rapping medium, you would essentially go to a room. There might be anywhere from 5 to 20 sitters. You would have your medium often at the head of a table or seated alone, large petticoats on, because mediums of this time period are predominantly female. And so you'll sit, you would likely sing a few hymns, you would wait patiently for the spirits to manifest, and then you would begin to hear the strange knockings. And I'm going to stop hitting my table so it shakes everyone nauseous. But you would hear these strange knockings, and then the medium would sort of guide the communications. You often had a note taker who would write down the communications. And again, you can communicate in a binary fashion, knock once for yes, twice for no, or you can engage in a form of mediumship, what we call alphabet calling. And this is going to be very important to the evolution of it. And that is, you can call out the alphabet and wait for a rap. So you call out A, B, C, D, E, F. F? Okay, write F down. A, B, C, D, E. E? Okay, write E down. And in this way, you can spell the name Felix and ask it questions, and yes or no questions, or spell out, words, sentences, phrases. And, before too long, you have entire books and novels will be written by the rapping mediumship, which is, from our modern perspective and viewpoint, kind of a preposterous proposal, in that we have scientists of the day that sit down and spell messages out to one another. They know what the message is, but they spell it out to one another, communicating in alphabet calling. And you can only get about 240 characters an hour, which is less than 2 tweets. So it's a very time-consuming process. And so that fact, that sort of tediousness of the rapping mediumship, paired with a new discovery that likely comes about from a lot of sitting around at these seances. We used to think that this discovery was a result of the mesmerist and animal magnetism and mesmerist experiments, but it actually came about through spiritualism directly, and that's the phenomenon of table tipping. And that is where, and probably because a lot of people, again, were sitting around these rooms waiting for these messages to come through. Their hands are resting on the table. And it's discovered in the early 1850s, so just a few years out from the movement, that the table will begin to move mysteriously under the outstretched hands of the sitters. And this creates a cooperative, collaborative environment where the table begins to move in a way that no person feels they are contributing to. And so that gives an agency to the seance sitters for the first time. Before, they were a passive agent in the experience. They sat there, they listened, they waited for the medium, who was the mode of communication between this world and the next. But now, placing their hands on the table will move mysteriously. It too can rap out, yes and no questions. It too can call out the alphabet. And so that is an incredibly important development that gives agency to spiritualists and allows them to try these tricks at home, right? They can just go home and try it on the piano stool or their coffee table, and they do. And so by the summer of 1853, it's what I've always called the summer of talking tables. This phenomenon spreads. It's all over America. On March 23rd, 1853, we just passed that anniversary last week, we actually know when it transferred over to Europe. There was a letter from a German immigrant in New York who went to a table tipping seance, writes a letter to his sister in Bremen, Germany, on the USS Washington. It's delivered. He gives instructions on how to hold a table tipping party, and she does. And a journalist in Europe attends it and writes a story about it, and that spreads. So by the summer of 1853, the entirety of the Western world is engulfed in sort of do-it-yourself spiritualism with your kitchen table.
Was the evolution of mediumship from table tipping, did it go to trans mediumship from there, to spirits starting to talk through people?
So you have a lot of, you have alphabet calling is established almost immediately. Trance mediumship actually predates modern American spiritualism, not only with Swedenborg and others, but also Andrew Jackson Davis, the famous Poughkeepsie seer, who would be also kind of one of the founding fathers of modern American spiritualism. He had been engaged in essentially what we now recognize as trance mediumship long before the Fox sisters. So not only does it predate it, but it immediately gets assumed by the movement. And so you definitely have that, a much more expedient means of communication if the voices can just speak through you. And we'll talk about tools for that as well. And then you have automatic writing too. So you would go into a trance and produce writing from the spirits, which kind of brings us to my main collectible. In the summer of 1853, you really start to see in the literature this rejection of the tediousness of seances, whether it be rapping mediumship or table tipping mediumship. So you have a lot of invested parties who are trying to speed things up. And these things happen nearly simultaneously. Of course, it's in the midst of this great fervor over the talking tables. You have Adolphus Wagner in Berlin, who creates the psychographen, or the psychograph. And this is we would recognize it as sort of a proto-Ouija device. And it's funny because we're still 40 years out from the Ouija at this point. And so it's the kind of the closest we get for a while. And what it is, it's an alphabet card that we would recognize. And by this point, alphabet calling can also be facilitated by an alphabet card with a pencil. You just have a pointer and you move it back and forth and you wait for the raps to indicate the right letter you're pointing at. But it's funny that we have the alphabet card, but applying the means that we would recognize as modern Ouija is going to take us a few decades. The first attempt is Wagner's device, which has this, instead of a planchette, it has this crisscross framework of arms that were based on the writing pantograph, which is sort of some lost technology that was used for duplicating written text and drawings. And so it's this crisscross framework that multiple people could place their hands on these paddles, and these arms that sort of scissor around, and there was a central indicator that would point to a letter on the board. And I wish I had an illustration of that. Unfortunately, there's one that exists. It's on my website. And then you have his early competitor, Daniel Ornog, Ornog creates a more typical device of the era, which is meant to harness the back and forth movement of the tables, or the up and down tilting motion of the tables. Many of these devices take advantage of that. They're just trying to harness that and sort of frame it to an alphabet. And so Hornick's device was basically this counterweighted disc that would turn as the table lifted. And there was a little viewfinder window in this little sort of framework. And you would screw this thing to your table and tip the table back and forth. And this disc would rotate and pause at letters. And then here in America, we have Isaac Pease's spiritual telegraph dial. And I actually own one of his clocks here. His device has yet to be rediscovered. Certainly a holy grail piece, but it was basically like a cigar box, and it had a dial or a clock hand on it, and a dial of letters and numbers and phrases and even musical notes. And this would be placed on top of your table, and a counterweight thrown off to the side or tied to a chair. And as the table moved back and forth, it had this spring-loaded indicator that would spin around, and you could spell out messages very carefully. So
Oh,
imagine a very cumbersome kitchen table size modern Ouija planchette in a teeny little dial with a clock hand on it. So
it's really interesting, the evolution you're speaking of I guess getting closer and closer to the Ouija board. I've taken part in one table tipping, I guess, seance.
right.
Wasn't me, it was a medium that specializes it out where I live. I live in Vancouver.
Okay.
And it was one of the most interesting things I've experienced.
It's I mean, that's the magic of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it truly, even as a skeptic, I've experienced that as well, and it's magical. It's just it really is. It feels eerie and mysterious, and you can see why it was. It just feels like nobody. It's like light as a feather, stiff as a board, right? The old party game. I mean, I did that in 5th grade, and just thought I thought that was real magic.
Yep.
I thought it was witchcraft.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
What kind of communication did y'all get? Communications through alphabet calling, through yes and no questions?
That's how he started it, and then he went into the like the trans medium stuff during.
Nice.
And that's why I was asking that earlier, because that was my experience with it. And I found the alphabet calling really cool, and it was doing it.
Right.
And like I've been paranormal investigating for, oh God, like probably over 18 years now. And this was the first time I experienced that. And I always go into all my experience or investigations or mediums or any sort of stuff like that with an open mind, because I know there's a lot of people that automatically write it off, which I think is very closed-minded. And I'm like, okay. And I've done past life regressions with them, which apparently were very accurate. So I've seen how he worked as a medium, and he invited me into the table tipping seance, which was very select people. He was very private about it. And it was a big to-do before we started and after, like opening the veil and closing the veil. And man, I would love to try it again.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. I love it.
Well, I have to say, I did a lot of table tipping in college. Brandon, as you know, my thing is the Ouija board, and I was doing Ouija boards for many years too. But I was kind of doing it as a side thing to the Ouija board to see, like, would it be this comparable? Would I get similar messages? But we did it, Brandon, just with yes, no. It was just too cumbersome, like you said, to, ABC.
Right.
Right. With Ouija board, we just go A, E, B, Q, D. With the table tipping, we did yes and no. And what I found, Brandon, when I was doing it, the table started moving. It was moving like across the floor. It was like, before we knew it, we were like down here using it. So it was kind of interesting how not only did we get the yes, no from the tipping of it, but also the movement of it, which reminded me of the planchette.
It was kind of aggressive. Like,
it was aggressive. It was, hey, I did the Ouija board, so it's like the energy is already there, but it was like moving across the floor. We had to like
business
keep moving our chairs with it. It was wild.
Now, so imagine this scenario where you've been doing table tipping all summer under these sorts of circumstances. So we're experiencing the same thing that they were experiencing in the 1850s. And you have a seance group in Paris that decides, again, they don't like the alphabet calling. And so they attempt to tie a pencil to a table leg and get written communications. So they try to harness this moving table on this big piece of butcher paper and write messages. And the spirits are getting really upset with them. And so they move from the large table. You can imagine, just the broken lead.
Oh my God. It's like asking a lot.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going so well. Then they try like a piano stool. And finally, the spirits communicate, go to the next room, retrieve the basket from the mantle there, and attach a pencil to it, and I will write for you. And luckily for us, its anniversary is coming up, not too far from now, on June 10th, 1853. These events are recorded at the time by the Seance group and later reported by Allan Kardec, the founder of French Spiritism, which is essentially American spiritualism with reincarnation attached. It's a little more complicated than that for any true believers out in the audience, I recognize, but that pretty much sums it up. And that is the birth of the automatic writing planchette. And within a few short months, these new planchettes or little boards are being manufactured in place of the baskets. Now, the baskets are still used in Cambodia and Vietnam, which were French colonies, and picked up this belief there. But the planchette was born there, and I've got some show and tell examples here. I'm going to pull out a nice British example because
just look behind you, Brandon. I mean, this is what I like about Brandon. This is why I want him on the show. Look at all the freaking planchettes behind him. Hello.
I love it.
This guy has them all, you guys.
Yeah, just a few.
Just a
the whole
few.
house. But I have one I can hold up. So for those who are unfamiliar,
That's
if
awesome.
you're wondering what you're looking at behind me, so this is a British version. British versions usually conform to the original illustration. The oldest illustration of a planchette was published in Britain. It has a flat back, flat butt, kind of a blunt nose. American planchettes tend to be heart or shield. Whoa, shield shaped.
Oh yeah, that's a typical.
No, Brandon, tell us what year those are, because these are like 1850s, 1880s.
Then these are 1860s. So we'll kind of get to the. I got a wheel off over here, y'all.
I know, because they're old, you guys. By the way, years ago, I would try to buy these things on eBay, and I think I was neck to neck with Brandon. He was always buying them before I got them.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Oh my God, this whole collection.
Seriously.
Yeah, I got most of this collection before I ever went public. About the time Karen and I met,
right,
was about the time I went public. But by that, I had already grown my collection so substantially by then. But yeah, the prices. Oh my God,
I'm jealous. I'm so freaking jealous, you guys, because these prices now today are like thousands. We're not talking just 100, 250, 60. Yeah. I built a lot of this collection on $25 and $50. Exactly. You don't get that anymore, you guys. So what,
you
guys, what you're seeing tonight, I want to be really clear. That's why I wanted them on the show, because you're going to see some stuff that you will not see anywhere else. It's one of a kind, or the last ones. There's only a few in the world, and he's got the most exquisite collection of planchettes.
Wow. A lot of the ones behind me here are actually, what we call soul surviving specimens. Sometimes another one pops up, but these things are a lot more rare and just were not, well, for a good year they were produced in mass, or a couple of good years. But for those unfamiliar, here we go. This is what we're looking at. So if you're familiar with a talking board or a Ouija planchette, this is its precursor by about 35 years. And it has these lovely little bone or ivory wheels on these brass casters. And the third wheel, as it were, is actually a pencil. So you'd put a nice sharp pencil in there, and you would place this on a piece of foolscap paper or butcher's paper, and you would place your hands on it just as you would with a Ouija. And it would begin to move mysteriously. But rather than pointing out the alphabet letters or numbers, it would write messages cooperatively. And again, that's the important aspect of this, as it is with table tipping. It's the collaborative, cooperative aspect where you feel like you are not contributing to the mysterious movements of the board. And so that's what's important. That's what sort of the enduring allure of these devices are. And so that's your basic planchette. And these will remain sort of in the purview of strictly spiritualists in France and England until 1858. We happen to know, I love this little booklet too.
I love it.
Until 1860, Robert Dale Owen, who's kind of a famous American, he was an ambassador to Italy at the time, or Sicily. He's on a sort of a European tour with Dr. H.F. Gardner, who was a famous Boston spiritualist. And they encounter not only the tomb writing of Goldenstub, Baron Goldenstub was doing this this form of automatic writing where you would leave blank paper and a pencil on a tombstone in the cemetery, the Père Lachaise there in Paris, and go hide around the corner and wait, and you go retrieve the paper and it would have written messages on it.
Wow.
So they went to experience that, and in the process experience planchette writers who were, by then a few years in, and they buy 6 copies. They hop over to England and lecture about them, and then they return to America in 1859, 1860, and they give one of these planchettes to a Boston bookseller who has 50 copies of it made. Now, this shelf, and I've taken the important one down, but this shelf here are all from the most likely candidate for who that bookseller is. But I've started to change my tune on that the more and more I've researched and dug in, and as Karen knows, it never ends. And these days I have a full-time research assistant who's here 4 days a week. So yeah, like we are deep. And
well, but Brandon, because you're doing a lot of work right now. He's actually presented in a museum in Minnesota recently. There's a lot of stuff. It goes deep here.
Yeah. So so these guys come over, they give a copy of this to a Boston bookstore who has 50 of them made, but they languish. They just sit on the shelves. They don't go anywhere. And then in 1867, I'm going to reach over and grab it because it's near. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, darn. I thought that was it. Sorry, I keep a copy of the original article. So there's an article in 1867 published in Once a Week on October 10th, 1867 in England. It's a very well-known sort of weekly publication. And it's this very sensational story of planchette use by an American tourist, comes to London, grabs some friends, and they go to some like estate in Scotland. And it's this really fantastic account of them, some ladies bring along a planchette and they use it and they get crazy communications. This article is so sensational and so good at selling planchettes and whipping up the appetite for them that it's reprinted as late as the 1930s as pitch materials, and like elements of it are in this little pitch book. It's right there. Boom, it's reprinted. This is from the 1915s or 1910s, and also a great little illustration of the planchette in use.
That's awesome.
That is. That's just. It's amazing.
And so this particular model is by Jacques & Son, who make planchettes pretty early on and for years and years, of famous British toy makers. But so this article goes viral. Again, it's what we see over and over, and that's really the best modern term for it. It gets reprinted in the newspapers. It's sensational, and demand erupts in the United States for these. First in the UK, and then by the holiday season in 1868, it's erupted in the States. And there's going to be a lot of contention in a very American way. There's going to be a lot of fighting about who the hell did it first. It was me. It was me. It was us. It was my firm. I had this idea first. It was none of them. It's so pointless because the things have been in existence for 15 years at that point. But one of the funny stories about it is, and this is where I'm starting to revise, G.W. Cottrell, who produced the Boston planchette here, he was my primary candidate for being that first Boston bookseller that sold.
That's what I remember you telling me before. Are you kidding? Is it changed?
Well, on his planchette, he prints made from the original pattern in 1860. Sounds compelling. The wheel again. And I got to pick that up, so I'll step on it later.
Well, again, it's like 150, 60 years old. It's going to fall apart.
And so, and I have some that, are a little more stable. It's the spirits tonight.
It is.
But
Exactly.
So he puts this on them, and he publishes a book and everything, and then there's even a reporter that interviews him about the planchette boom, and the reporter mentions, I saw one of the original planchettes brought to America, and I had the chance to compare it to a modern one. It's not quite as refined, but it's very similar, essentially. So the reporter is in G.W. Cottrell's bookstore and says, I saw one of the original ones there. He had one there.
Wow.
And he's claiming he makes it from the original pattern. And unfortunately, this says it's the original pattern. But so does this one. And for those who can't tell, this is heart-shaped. This is shield-shaped. And so, meanwhile, you have this guy in Maine, in Portland, Maine, C.H. Farley. I was looking for, because guys, this is just the depths and craziness of this collection.
It's extensive, you guys. I gotta say something, Brandon. Okay, so when I was writing my book, The Ouija Board, The Spirits of Ouija, you're in it, and I found Brandon's research. This is how I met Brandon. I found his research about the planchette, and I went with the Cottrell one you're talking about, and now you're telling me it's changed. So you're telling me my Ouija board book is wrong now.
Oh no,
planchette.
Hey, I've done it too. I've got so much, I mean, my site and everything.
Listen, I
time to
rely on
revise.
his
And
research,
I
you guys. So,
revise.
okay, I got to change that now.
Yep.
Yeah. So I not only have his business card, which big whoop, you know, I
that's
guess
cool.
fun, but it actually has a picture of his little factory. He produced
Wow.
instruments. And so some of the first planchettes in the country were made in this building, and it's still standing in Portland, Maine. It's fantastic. I haven't had a chance to visit it, but it's so neat. And the details on this are so great. Important note, he was also a glazier. He owned a glass factory that was open until the 1950s. That's going to be important for another artifact I'm about to show you. But and yeah, I also own his personal eyeglasses. Because,
Shut up.
Yeah, why not?
Why not, right?
Get
Exactly,
out.
yeah.
So
But can you see through them? Yeah.
Oh my God.
You're transformed.
It kind of suits you.
You have got to stop changing history on us, okay? I'm not happy with this at all, Brandon.
Well, and this is a fairly recent discovery, and it brings us to the next set of artifacts, because you have C.H. Farley, but here's the deal. Again, they're all fighting. Oh, it's all bullshit. Like, none of them invented it, but they all are saying, no, it was me, it was me. So C.H. Farley's saying it was him. He says, it was me. But he also admits it wasn't him at the same time. He says, I was the first because somebody visited from Canada and brought one with them. And that's where I got the idea. So it's like, then what the hell are you fighting about? If you just admitted in the papers that you got the idea from a Canadian who brought you a pre-existing invention, into your town. And but he's very adamant about this, and he ends up teaming up with another company. I'm going to slip off camera here and grab one. A company called Kirby and Company, who really were sort of the kings of the planchette manufacturers. They have sheet music dedicated to them, like the planchette polka, and they have these very distinctive planchettes. And a lot of these companies will have various shapes, trying to sort of give the perception that they have a patent on a design that doesn't really exist. Like, a lot of the Kirby and Company things say patent pending. It's all posturing. But this is a fine example of a Kirby and Company planchette. Beautiful. They partner with C.H. Farley, and this is the new news. Essentially, I have found more interviews of their kvetching, right, about that jackass in Boston that ripped us off. And
you know what's so funny? The Ouija board was fought over like this too. The Ouija board and the planche of the Ouija board, as Brandon knows, because this segues into the Ouija board stuff. But I'm gonna say the same kind of fighting happened.
Yep. They're 20 years to 30 years after it comes out, they're all still claiming credit. It's like, oh, if any one person had Google. Or we'll get to the more details of this history as we segue into Ouija. But you're like, if one person just had a newspaper from 1886, they could have stepped up and they could have shut the Ouija down with one newspaper,
right?
And it was a popularly reprinted article, and it's just like this. And so Kirby and Company ends up partnering with C.H. Farley, and they will take it to their graves that G.W. Cottrell ripped them off, which likely explains why why he has that original one and why his planchettes say from the original pattern since 1860. That's his cover. And I think he's saying that because there's a problem. I can't find any early G.W. Cottrell ads. You know, like his ads come nearly a year after the earliest ads from other manufacturers. And yet he's trying to say he's been doing it since 1860. Show me the money, GW. Like come back and show us where you advertise these things. So I think he got a hold, because he was in Boston, I think he got a hold of one of those original ones, copied it, and then used that as cover to basically tell his competitors, no, I was first.
But do you think too, Brandon, that was because like the Boston Globe, or you had some bigger periodicals or newspapers that could push this stuff out there like propaganda? Do you think that might have been why people could say that?
I think they were just all trying to be the dominant wolf of the pack in a crowd, in what was a very crowded market, because
and it was very popular to do spare communication with the planchette originally, because the Ouija board wasn't even around yet. So this makes sense. So they had a fight for who did it first.
Yeah, they did. Now, who did it better though?
Oh,
and this is where I will definitely give credit to Kirby, because they really go all out. For starters, they're going to produce this beauty. And
I love that one.
I like that one.
This is the jet black ebonite. It's made of what's largely considered the one of the earliest forms of commercial plastic. And this was to basically create insulation from negative spirits. It's hard to shade. This is what they call their number 3. They produce three wooden boards, the numbers number 1 and number 2. Then they introduced the number 0 as like the basic model, and then the number 3. And so everything on this is India rubber, is what they called it, but it's actually ebonite. And little wheels are from Goodyear. They're stamped Goodyear.
And that's an original one?
This is, yeah.
Wow.
So, again, only known survivor here.
Wow.
And but yeah, it was made of this to insulate from undue animal magnetic influence. But still, not even the pinnacle of what Kirby offered. For a whopping $8, they offered. This is where the partnership with Glazier C.H. Farley comes into play.
I'll buy it from you for $10.
Right.
All right, I got 12. I'll get 12.
That's
this is the plate glass Kirby, which
oh my word,
Karen, I can see right through.
Look at that.
That's the high roller
so
version.
this is made with plate glass from C.H. Farley's factory, and it's just ivory wheels, brass hardware, and thick plate glass, so you can see your writing as it's being produced. So for me, really the pinnacle of automatic writing technology, right?
How many of those are in existence?
This is it. The last 2 you saw are the only ones we've ever seen.
What's
I'm
the
telling
value?
you, Brandon has exquisite stuff, one of a kind.
Yeah.
And so all of these shapes, and I will. Let me risk a bit of a tour here. The risk being your viewers. Gonna try not to make them sick.
Now, Jake has posted in the chat that $8 in 1860 is the equivalent in purchasing power of about $273.46 today.
I would
Thank
say
you
that
for
thing
doing
is probably
that.
$4 or $5 grand.
Mm-hmm.
I was immediately regretting that I didn't have that figure in my head. All right, let's cover this up for a second and then flip my camera around. All right, here we go.
Oh, wow. Here we go.
One moment, y'all. Okay, so just to give you an idea here, most of my, let me see if I can, all right, let me see my view a little bit better here.
Wow. I love it.
All right. So here are a few shelves of automatic writing planchettes. These are all, except for the middle one, I'm trying to get on my own light here. These are all Kirby and Company planchettes. This is the one we just had on camera. This is not Kirby and Company. This is the Enchanting Medium planchette, which was a custom planchette made by a jeweler, as far as we can tell, in Great Britain. It's engraved Enchanting Medium right here.
What
That's
era is that
gorgeous.
from? What year is that?
It probably dates from right after 1903. So,
Jeez.
you know what? I'll skip up here. Again, I'm going to cover the camera there, so I'm not making everybody dizzy.
What's it made out of?
Let's see. Whoop. It's ebony, and that has silver plating. This trial, this is a depiction of the Cavendish planchette trial in 1903, which is going to be hugely formative for bringing the planchette back in the wake of the Ouija success in the 1890s. And you can see Henry Cavendish there. He basically gets bilked by some unscrupulous mediums using a planchette, and he's a millionaire playboy, like literally like big game hunter, playboy, bachelor type, who squanders his family fortune to these mediums who basically say, hey, your parents said you should sign over all your financial rights to your dead parents, wrote through the planchette, you should sign over all your financial rights to us.
Wow.
Like you do. And so you've got some early competitors here to the Kirby and Company. You can see this is either a licensed design or just a straight up bootleg, uses their same little distinctive scoop. This is by G.W. Pitcher in Philadelphia. Here's a Bangs Williams planchette from New York, and here's another G.W. Pitcher, and you can see them really trying to create unique designs to set themselves apart. Some early Kirby and Company literature there.
What about that photo that was ripped? Looked ripped. The picture.
Oh, that's a little art piece by yours truly. That's the ectoplasmatist.
Oh,
That's
cool.
That's from 1940s era ectoplasm there from Karen and my friend Calvin Von Crush. So yeah, that's just a funny little. I got the soul of an artist.
You got that from Calvin? Did Calvin get that for you?
The ectoplasm, yeah, he found a bunch in
you guys, Calvin's part of the Talking Board Historical Society. That's so funny.
Yeah, he there was a bunch
we're
of
all friends with Calvin.
Yeah, cool. He was like there was a bunch of rotting cheesecloth, muslin gauze that was covered in old luminous paint in the trunk of a spook show magician, so from the 1940s. So that would have been used as like the shroud for the blackout portion of the spook show.
It's called charlatanism.
Right.
Yes.
Snake oil.
Here's a couple of canes from James Valentine Mansfield, the famous spiritualist postmaster.
Wow.
And here's a Lily Dale. Karen and I were talking about Lily Dale.
Yes, love Lily Dale, you guys. One of the first spiritualist communities in the United States.
Okay.
And the future home, or the past home, I should say, the Fox Cottage.
That's correct.
Pictures I showed earlier.
Ooh.
Unfortunately, it burned down in the 1950s, but they relocated the Fox Cottage to Lilydale in 1915 as sort of a shrine to spiritualism. There's an early Kennard Ouija board. We'll be talking about that a little more. Here's a couple of neat ones. These are two versions of George Pearson's cablegraph.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
This is his 1900 version. And then he patents that, releases it, produces them for a while. And then in 1919, he revisits it. He gets a patent for this one too.
Oh, that's cool.
But he sort of simplifies it and makes it a little easier to produce. And I've got the original box for that and everything. And let's see, slipping over to the other side, here's the mantle. Here is a Boston planchette ad. So this is the Boston planchette as produced by G.W. Cottrell. And planchette in use here. I know the glare here isn't great. There's an Espirito planchette. This is just the mantle, like you do.
Do you guys notice how these Ouija board planchettes look like the automatic writer planchettes? I know Brandon's going to get into that. He's going to talk about how that transition happened, but he's showing you because he has them all.
I'm going to turn on my overhead light here. Hopefully, wash out some of this, some of the
How many would you say you have?
Spooky.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I'm probably creeping up on maybe 200 or so automatic writing planchettes. These are all. I was gonna. Karen just nailed it. So just to show you, here is an automatic writing planchette produced by the W.S. Reed Toy Company. And when we jump
Here
ahead,
we go.
when we jump ahead to Ouija history, which I guess we can just kind of do, right? We're chomping the bit for it.
Yeah.
So we're going to see, but I'm going to skip over Tuttle. Hold on, I'm just going to point it out while we're on the subject.
You got to show Tuttle. I agree.
Yeah.
I love it.
This is a W.S. Reed. So this was produced in the 1890s by, we'll revisit it, a company that actually beat the producers of Ouija to the punch by producing a witch board for Grover Cleveland's birthday in 1886. And you'll notice that shape is the same as that shape, which is the same as that shape,
Right.
which is the same
As the Esperito.
Okay.
This shape being the same as this shape. This is the original 1860 pattern that G.W. Cottrell is advertising.
Wow.
So the W.S. Reed planchette is actually like the G.W. Cottrell, supposedly based on those original European planchettes that were brought over to the U.S. from that Boston bookseller.
Gorgeous, all of them.
Yeah.
The planchette in
But
use
you see
there.
how it segues into the Ouija planchette now, Fisperito?
You can see the
That's
evolution.
the beginning of the talking board now with the planchette. So there's a big, wonderful marriage going on from spiritism to spiritualism, from the planchette overseas to what we create in the United States. It's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Look at that. Look at what he has. This is amazing.
See, I'm big into haunted objects and haunted artifacts. Do you feel any of yours could be haunted?
I have never gotten that feeling. And y'all, it's funny that the TikTok I posted yesterday was up for this planchette. It did the
Beautiful.
Saturday Night Live skit. I'm Holly. I'm the. I showed 3 beautiful planchettes. And I'm Denise. And let's see. And here's
This is in his house, you guys. Brandon, you don't have any kind of paranormal activity, do you?
No, I've never gotten that. Even visitors that have claimed to be empathic and stuff have always felt at ease. I was open for the Weird Homes tour. And,
that's right.
And had a lot of psychic folk come in and they were like, wow, this house is clean. That's not what I expected.
Wow.
I'm like, well, yeah, there you
He's
go.
brought a lot of his stuff like to WouijaCon too. Remember, you brought a lot of your stuff with the Travel Museum, and there was no negative energy. It was nothing but positivity.
I keep them well fed, Karen.
That's what it is. You honor the spirits, Brandon. Hey, you got the spiritograph. Did I just see that for a second in there, the spiritograph? What'd you show?
I think we did see it.
Because remember when I asked you to come on the show, they wanted to know about the spiritograph, and I think you just saw one.
The spiritograph. Hold on.
If it wasn't it looked real close.
I know, it looked like it, didn't it?
This?
No. Well, what is that? Tell them about that though, too, please.
Yeah.
This is a new edition from Australia. I don't know much about it. It's a psychograph.
Psychograph. Okay,
And
cool.
So this is a psychograph, and this will allow me to segue. It might be a Tuttle. It has the same back label as a Tuttle. So y'all, that's
it right there, spiritograph. I saw that one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, my spiritoscope is currently at the Minneapolis. It's not Minneapolis. It's Minneapolis.
Minneapolis.
Okay, I didn't know if it was Indianapolis or.
Yeah, it's at the Minneapolis Institute of Art on display there. So. But here's a Tuttle psychograph. So these actually predate the Ouija by a few years. These pop up in the 1880s and are sold to the 19 teens.
Tell them how it's used, though, Brandon, because I think a lot of people don't understand how that's used.
Well, so this would be used like a Ouija. You could place it on your lap. You could place it on a table, and you would, just place your fingertips lightly, and it would move mysteriously, but in a dial. It would just, move around.
Just like the planchette, but it's in a dial. Instead of my planchette going back and forth like on the board, it would just go that and that. Now, I did not get, I would have loved to have tried that with my Ouija board partner, because I'm telling you, we get such great results on the Ouija board. I would have loved to use that, but he wasn't there at WouijaCon, so I didn't get a chance to use it. That's when last time I saw that.
Oh man. Why do you have any thoughts on why those didn't become as popular as the Ouija board?
You must have read my mind. I ask that question.
It happens
all the time. It's a self-contained unit. It's ball bearing. I have no idea. Probably because Tuttle was a spiritualist making spiritualist tools for other believers, as opposed to derpy go.
I like that. There you go.
Some later Ouija from the 20s.
I want to throw something out there too, Brandon. Tell me what you think about this. You and I don't think we discussed this. The fact that the Ouija board, there's no containment other than the board itself. So the planchette can move all these erratic movements, where that you're stuck with around in a circle. I wonder if that's too containing for people who do readings, because I do readings and it's too containing for me.
It could be. It could be. I mean, also, but I think it's probably just marketing. The fact that the Kenner Novelty Company and we're going to go back in time and talk about spirit trumpets here.
Yay!
Well,
yes.
And you know what? Oh, where's my flashlight? Oh, darn.
Is that more ectoplasm?
It is. Check this out. I got to do it. Let me see if I can do it. Give me a second. Let me grab this.
Oh, sure.
You got to love his museum, right?
Absolutely.
And his energy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Ready?
Oh, shut up. It's glowing.
Slimer.
That's straight up ectoplasm right there.
That's real now. That's legit.
Yep.
My
we can tell.
Brandon, that's so freaking cool with the green. You did great with that.
When I turn off the lights at night, that's the last thing. This is above my couch. And
that's awesome.
Yes, it is.
So spirit trumpets are actually also, so they are a tool for direct voice mediumship, and they enable the spirits of the dead to speak through either the medium or just speak through the ether, through the horn itself, which is often believed to float throughout the room in seances. Here's the world's oldest photograph of a talking board.
Oh, look at that. What year is
Holy
that,
cow.
Brandon?
This is early. It's probably 1892.
Okay, so they're using Ouija. Is that Ouija or Spirito?
No, it's an original Kennard. It's got a.
Oh, it's Kennard. Okay, Kennard. Yeah. Okay.
All right, it's
That's
probably not
bitchin'.
quite focusing in. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that picture is probably going to be my book cover, so that one doesn't get.
Dude, that's such an awesome picture. I don't think I've ever seen that picture before. It's awesome.
So the spirit trumpet is invented, and this is important sort of to the development of seances. It's invented in 1853 as well. And I'm going to kind of continue the tour while I talk about it. Here I've got some front door. Here's just some other occultism, some astrology artifacts, and calculators and charts. And me.
Hey!
And some astrology themed boards. And other stuff.
And by the way, he has some of the older Ouija boards too, you guys. He has it all.
Neat.
Wow.
So in Athens County, Ohio, in 1853, this young woman dies. She's 12 years old. Her name is Philenia Coons, and it's a great loss to her family. And the father, who's kind of an avowed atheist, there's a spirit trumpet there on the table, sends out for a pastor to do the service. And he's rejected by 3 different pastors because he's not a member of their congregation. His family isn't that religious, and he gets so incensed by this that he begins confronting these different pastors and congregations locally. And he eventually confronts a spirit medium in Columbus, Ohio. But instead of being confrontational, she actually tells him that he is the world's most powerful psychic medium, and that he should foster this talent, and informs him about automatic writing, which he takes to heart. He returns home and begins practicing it. And the spirits, I've got a few things removed here for our show and tell. So some galvanic apparatus, some other British planchettes. So he takes this to heart. He begins practicing automatic writing, and the spirits begin to speak through him, and they begin to give him new conceptions of how seances can be performed. They instruct him to build what we call the spiritual machine. It's this thing.
What?
What you're looking at is the cross section of a 6-foot-long mahogany table that has these 4 arcing frames that come off each corner, some drums for the spirits to announce their presence, and all these wires and glass globes and insulators and bells, and this and this are these battery banks that are essentially alternating plates, of nickel and copper, which is what informs these devices here. These, they're essentially, these are called Boyd's batteries. They're galvanic devices. Early voltaic piles, the earliest batteries, are alternating plates of copper and nickel. So the spirits have essentially instructed him to build a spiritual battery that is to be housed in a specialized room. This will become known as Coons' spirit room. And he will begin conducting seances. And the purpose of the machine was to actually allow the spirits to physically manifest within the room. So the room would be plunged into total darkness. Here, this creepy little frozen Charlotte is actually an artifact from beneath his neighbor's house who had an identical spirit room, the Tippy spirit room. And so they begin to hold dark seances, much more like the modern conception of the seance, where the lights are out, these glowing hands would manifest, spirits would take up my hagstones, my hagstone hunter.
I have a bunch of those hagstones myself. Those are awesome.
And and he and so they and this becomes a huge phenomenon, these dark seances where these glowing hands would manifest, and they would seize up these trumpets, and voices would begin to speak through them, imparting information from the spirits of the deceased. And that really is sort of the birth of the really modern seance is going to take place then, there in the wilds of Athens County, Ohio. And y'all, I spent 4 years doing satellite imagery and reconstructions of the original farm boundaries, trying to locate the location of the room. I've actually found the locations of the Tippy and Kern's room, who were copycat rooms, but unfortunately the original Coons room is long gone.
Are there any pictures of that room left that you could see?
No, there's not.
Oh,
And y'all,
man.
everything is suddenly very quiet for me. Hello?
Uh-oh. Can you hear
There
us?
we go.
Okay.
I accidentally, I hit a
He
wrong
went
button.
into the Coons room.
There.
The great unknown grabbed him.
That's
I'm
it.
I'm glad y'all could I wasn't just talking through muted, but no.
We do it all. You're muted.
So are you saying, Brandon, that's when seances became in the dark more so than they were in the originally? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Yeah, that's the birth of the modern dark seance.
And then, because I use the Ouija board, I never turn the lights off. It's always in the light. I'll do it in the middle of the day. I'll do it in the morning. It's like, I don't even care about the dark, but that's interesting. That's kind of what's got it started to be in the dark.
Yep.
Well, that is interesting. What is your oldest board that you have?
Well, we'll pull that out.
Oh, just wait till you get to that.
There we go.
I would spend hours there. I'm not even exaggerating.
Well,
Oh,
you're
no,
welcome.
he's
Anytime.
got it all.
Yeah.
Come on down to Austin and
Look at that yogi board. That's nice.
I've always been super fascinated with the occult, especially the boards and the planchettes and all of it.
Oh, that's lovely. So, Mike, what's your oldest board you have?
I don't collect them. I collect Victorian era photos and death photos.
Oh, that's cool too.
Yeah. I have 2 Ouija boards, but they're more, I would consider them modern.
Okay, the one behind you, is that a picture of the glow in dark board? Which board is that?
Oh, that is just
which board?
my background. That's just B-roll.
Okay. I thought it was the glow in the dark board.
No.
Looked like that to me, but
There's an automatic writing planchette made out of a human skull.
oh no, that's cool. Cool.
So my lighting isn't great at the moment, but yeah, they go all the way to the ceiling.
Oh my
Here's a
gosh.
clock by He's America's first spirit communication device inventor. And Karen, normally the spiritoscope goes in there, but it's sadly empty at the moment.
Oh, because it's at the
And so
museum.
here is this isn't the oldest
Wow.
Kennard talking board that I own, but it's one of them. So that is the original Kennard Ouija novelty or Kennard Novelty Company Ouija board. And
Brandon,
I'll
is
sit down
that the
here.
one with the slats in the back?
It is.
Yeah. See, I don't have that one. That's the one I'm looking for. I had the one where they didn't have the slats in the back. So mine's like 1892, 93 circa. That's like 1890, isn't it? 1890, 91.
So this particular one has both registered and trademarked. So
Oh.
it's probably 93.
Yeah, a little bit older than mine. I mean, a little newer than mine.
But let me get comfy, sit down again. All right, now I'm in the Ouija room. And
Whee!
but
Ah.
I do have one, and I set it aside for show and tell in the other room that I've now left, that doesn't have registered. So that puts it probably in 1891.
Yeah. Okay. So that's his oldest Ouija board. Now we don't have the witch board. Nobody has the witch board. So that would be your oldest board then you have is the 1890-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what's the difference between a Ouija and a witch board, or talking board and a witch board?
So in 1886, so a lot of my research is filling in the gaps in talking board history, because there are all these devices. We tend to look at these things, I think, historically as these great breaks of developments with big gaps of nothing in between.
Mhm.
It turns out the real action is in the gaps.
Right.
And it's not this cut and dry. Even one thing we see is there's always been this idea that sort of planchettes went extinct as soon as the talking board came around. They have a very healthy life in the wake of the Ouija's success. They sort of just piggyback on it, and they were already well known. Karen, this is kind of new information too. A lot of the 1920s famous Ouija board murders,
Yep.
not Ouija boards,
Planchettes.
planchettes.
Shut up. He's right. That's new.
If you go and read it, the cops are like, it was a heart-shaped board with 2 wheels and a pencil.
See, they go and they say board. We're thinking it's a whole Ouija board. So the
Sure.
planchette was called little board, little table. Oh, wow. Okay.
But also sometimes the headlines say Ouija boards, because the Ouija was so huge in the 20s. Ouija board told her to shoot her daddy. But then you read what the actual quotes, and they're like, oh, it was a heart-shaped board with, 2 wheels and a pencil.
Great job, you guys. Ouija board, you call everything Ouija is like saying Kleenex for everything,
Right.
when it's not.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So that's actually great research. I can't wait to read this book, Brandon, you're coming out with. Oh my God.
When is it out?
You've been working on it a little while, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, I have
Approximately.
been. Now, to be fair, I've been researching this stuff for over 20 years now, but really, and as Karen knows, I've literally traveled the world documenting devices. I've lectured and documented things all over Europe.
Wow.
I would love to make it to Asia before this happens, but probably not. As soon as I can get it written, and it is actively, as opposed to years past, people would say, when's the book coming out? And be like, well, I'm kind of still researching it. Like, yes, I'm researching a book.
You're quite a bit of ways into it, though. You've done a lot, from what I understand.
Now, first of all, from previous publications that I still, I have used articles I write, for example, for the Paranormal Review, as testing grounds for a lot of book material, and I own the copyright to those materials. So I have I've been publishing on this stuff for years, and then it'll get plugged into. But it is a massive undertaking. I decided to completely finish an entire. Karen, this is very recent. I decided to completely finish one chapter. I started in the middle. I went to the 1910s, thinking it was sort of an average decade.
Okay.
I wrote it, and I just finished it a few weeks ago.
Congratulations.
And
this is going to be a coffee table
it's a
book.
draft, right? It's a draft, but it still needs some work. But for starters, there are so many new discoveries, and so many of these evolutionary steps along the way that, we asked the question, okay, where does Ouija come from? If you were there at the time, it's really not a surprise, particularly if you were a spiritualist. But I wrote it because I needed to get an idea of the space I was taking up with this thing. And this is just one chapter of 14. And if every chapter is the same size as this, it will be over 500,000 word book.
Shut up.
It'll be a 500 plus. So we're talking one of those thick Taschen level coffee table breakers. That's what
the Bible of this.
It's gonna be,
we're all going to be buying it, you guys. It's not uncanny. For I will contact somebody. Like I just recently was I was telling Brendan this. He knows the Lilydale, and I'm going to be speaking there in July. And when I reach out to them, they're asking me for a proposal. They're like, "Oh, we know Brandon Hodge. He came out and did our research about." Everybody knows him. I'm telling you guys. What you're seeing tonight is like he's sought after around the world. All these different shows I go to and things I do. They're like, "Oh, Brandon Hodge," You're talking to the head guy, foremost expert on this, the planchettes and a lot of this history. Okay, so we're really in for a treat. That's why I said
it's just fun. It's just so, the stuff is so interesting and fascinating to me, and and there's an endless number of discoveries to be had. I mean, it's particularly with a research assistant now, where I'm freed up from some of the doldrum stuff, although she gets plenty of excitement in the mix too. But and has made some new patent discoveries.
Wow.
She made a new patent discovery. How many times have we been over and over and over in that patent record? And she found a new, and not even an obscure, it shouldn't be obscure. It should have been in our list all along.
Have you told Jean?
Not yet. No, I haven't.
Jane's one of our colleagues who has the Museum of Talkingboards.com online, and we're all connected. We're all like figuring this stuff out. But Jean and Brandon and Robert Murch are the head historians of all this stuff. I just want you guys to know what you got here tonight with him.
Jean and I talk pretty much almost every day, and he gets most of the new discoveries. I hold a couple of things back. I still want to surprise him too.
Yeah, you got to. It's got to be in your book.
Right. But so there's discoveries to be made, and so many of those take place in those gaps of history where we think, oh, the planchette exploded in 1868, and then nobody ever talked about it again until the Ouija board came along. And there's the Tuttle psychograph. There's all of these. I mean, there's crazy stuff in the 1880s where this guy, he creates what he calls the new wave detector. He starts getting these strange raps and knocks from this box apparatus he makes, and he's super secretive about what it is, but he starts, interpreting these raps and knocks in these clicks, the same way that, and he's like, we're getting messages in Russian and French, and he's sending out these messages to the spiritualist newspapers, and everybody's trying to, oh my God, that's a message in Lithuanian, all this. And then,
maybe it's Morse code.
Well, that's what people are saying, but they're like, what is causing these clicks? So finally, some spiritualist reporters go. He had radioactive materials in a metal tube and had essentially created a Geiger counter. He hooked up a galvanometer to it, and it was.
Oh my gosh!
Well played.
But what's so funny about that is that he actually made sense out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he would send these crazy scrambled messages. He would post pages of them in the newspapers, and people would be like, "Oh, if you look at every third letter, it's a message in French." It's crazy.
Jake, weren't you our code breaker? Are you with us?
I think Jake's on hiatus right now.
Well,
I'm here.
Oh, you are? Hey.
Yeah, I'm taking
He's
care
posting the heck out of links to all of this.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm dropping links. Yes, I did have to learn Morse code though.
Oh, okay. So aren't you in the chat room? I'm sure there's a lot of questions for Brandon. I mean,
if there's any questions, let's hear them.
Well, no, everyone is pretty much just agreeing with what you're saying
and loving.
They're probably like this. Their jaws like this. Huh?
Exactly. Yeah. Collecting their drool. Yeah.
Do you have any artifacts from Canada?
Ooh.
Oh, let's see. What do I have from Canada? The great George Hamilton archive is there in Canada. I have.
You've got some Ouijas from Canada. Come on.
I'm trying to think where my.
We all do. Cop Clark.
I'm looking for it. Where is it?
He'll pull it out here soon.
I do.
It's there.
I have a Cop Clark.
Notice, you guys, he frames his Ouija boards and puts them on the wall.
Look, I don't even have to get up. I
just put mine on, like they're not framed. Oh,
there it is.
I have that one.
I have that one.
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
On demand.
It's more modern day, you guys.
They're all weak. Tip your bartender.
That's Canadian.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We and non. Yep.
So we have all these, these false starts. We have the alphabet card in use almost immediately after the birth of spiritualism. You have people pointing to it with a pencil. All along the way, you have people pairing automatic writing planchettes with an alphabet board. It's talking board. It's not called that yet. It's not till 1886 you have an article, and it's got lots of great titles, all sensational, but my favorite is The New Planchette.
Right.
And it's an illustrated article, much the same way as the Once a Week article was with the planchette in the 1860s. It's got illustrations of a board. You'd recognize it. 2 arcs of letters, numbers, and little squigglies in the corner, I think some stars, and then a couple using it. It's got a really long-legged planchette, diamond shaped. And it talks about, this fantastic invention in use by the spiritualists again in Ohio. So Ohio really is a hotbed of thought here. And sorry, I'm trying to clear my screen of my sudden influx of email notifications.
I was going to say ectoplasm,
now's the appropriate
right?
time, iPhone, to let me know that I got emails hours ago. So this article again spreads virally of news of this new talking board, and it's not really new. You've got them in the 1860s, 70s, 80s, but this one is the big news that creates the demand that will be filled not by the Ouija Novelty Company, but rather initially by W.S. Reed Toy Company, whose planchette I showed earlier. And they have the Espirito talking board. And I think I need to go grab it.
Or the Witchboard, as it was called when they gave it to Grover Cleveland, the president, in 1886.
Okay.
So he'll show us to you. The Espiritos board is original. Nobody's found the witch board. Okay, we don't have the witch board, but he has the Espirito, which we believe is like what the witch board would have looked at. He'll explain this to you a little bit further. And this is, guys, this is like there's only a few of these in the world.
Wow.
Look at, and you have a beauty, Brandon. You have the beauty.
So,
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
this is a fine specimen. Many of these are made with multiple slats. This one's all one big board.
Ugh.
So because the problem with some of these, as far as historical artifacts, they have they have like 3 slats going this way, and then they have these end cap slats that are sort of like dovetailed on them. But because the wood is cut differently, they shrink differently. So this wood contracts one way, and the end slats contract another, and they don't line up after, all 120 plus years. So this company that produced the Espirito, this is an Espirito, in 1886, right after that article comes out, produces what they call the witch board. And they send one to President Grover Cleveland when he has his very inappropriate marriage in the White House. And they send it as a wedding gift. It's an article in the newspaper. And then he actually responds and thanks them, but says he will decline to use it for any policy decisions. So this company actually creates a talking board with a planchette, just like the Ouija, 4 years previously to the Ouija Novelty Company or the Kennard Novelty Company in Baltimore. And so when so what happens essentially is this article, it spreads. It's in the Baltimore Sun, which is printed in Chestertown, Maryland, which is where a guy named Charles Kennard lives, and along with a cabinet maker and coffin maker named E.C. Resch.
Okay.
And these guys, it's contested who. Apparently E.C. Resch will have enough evidence so that after the Ouija board debuts, he goes to Baltimore and says, hey, now wait a minute. Again, just like with the planchettes, I invented that. You owe me. That's mine. And they actually pay him in stock. So he had enough to convince them to cough up some stock for him. And Kennard was on the board of directors still. He was the founder of the company. So what happens is they have some of these made. Kennard will claim that he had Resch make them for him. And so they make some. They're popular locally. In 1890, he gets the idea that maybe this would be a cool commercial thing. And he relocates to Baltimore, starts the Kennard Novelty Company, and they create the Ouija. At first, it's unnamed. They have a working name, which may or may not have been Casnon, because Kennard will turn around and recycle that name later, but they weren't quite happy with the name. And while they are sitting with the patentee Elijah Bond's sister-in-law,
Helen Peters,
who's working as the strong medium on the board, they'll ask the board what it would like to be called. It spells out O-U-I-J-A. They ask what that means, and it says good luck. And so that's the birth of the Ouija. Again, like the planchette, based on stuff that had been around for years previously, but a new commercial effort. And this is where we start to see, and this is a funny thing in my writing, because the first few chapters of my book are all spiritualists, all, spirits and communication and seances and tables. And then about halfway through the book, and I was talking about this with Gene and Karen, it starts to shift to like the history of toy manufacturing.
Right, it was toys.
And so I've got to write about both. I got to write about the belief and the seance, in which that's the stuff I really love and adore.
Exactly.
But here I am now. I'm working on. We've been sort of doing our final research push for the 1940s, and it's just this factory here, and then this company, this famous industrialist started this company, and all this, and it's just like, I kind of looked up in my research assistant Olivia the other day, and I was like, man, I really need a spiritualist to pop up and write about, because this is all they're all rich, privileged industrialists. There's nothing interesting. Give me any day of the week a guy like this. Karen knows what this one is.
Oh my God. And you guys got to understand too, when the Ouija came
That's
out,
cool.
because it was so popular, a lot of copycats came out. He's going to show you this. All these other boards started coming out, and he's going to talk about all that too in his book.
So this one is a copycat, and
Yep.
it's made by one of my favorites. And this guy's not an industrialist. He's a businessman, but he was a con man.
I
And
love
he's
it.
one of my favorite people. I've written a biography on this guy. His name is Theodore H. White. He is actually the second most prolific Ouija or talking board patentee, next to William Fuld himself, who William Fuld, by the way, is kind of the name most famously associated with the Ouija.
Yes.
Actually was a shop foreman in the woodworking department, and an early stockholder of the Kennard Novelty Company that would eventually take over the company. But he's a businessman, right? I mean, he's a church-going Freemason guy, and there's some interesting.
He's not the
tidbits.
Grand Wizard of Oz or something.
No,
right?
no. But this guy is.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Theodore H. White is a Baltimore. So he's actually from Baltimore too. He's a Baltimore-based occultist who ran several decades worth of occult cons, and most famously his College of Science, which was an occult correspondence course that the feds broke up in 1904 for mail fraud. He basically had a mail order correspondence spell book that would teach you, it was a grimoire, it would teach you spells, white and black magic, it would teach you hypnotism, mesmerism, personal healing, and spiritualism. And he did this. He sold patent medicines and snake oils. He was a hypnotist himself. He was.
They got him on the medicine part, right? He was saying he could heal something. Is that what they got him on?
Yeah. Well, yeah. They get him on basically fraud advertisements. He would do what we call distance healing. So mail me a lock of your hair, and I'll send you back, some prayers to say, and then
you
I'm
can
pray
wait that
over
today, but back then, yeah, you could. Is this also going to be in your book, Brandon? This information as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh.
Karen, the book will be a comprehensive.
It'll be like,
I dare say exhaustive. Hopefully not exhaustive.
oh, it's going to be exhaustive, but not exhausting.
It's a comprehensive history, chronological history of the evolution of spirit communication apparatus. So it will include spirit trumpet, writing planchettes, talking boards, and all the weird stuff in between. As well as spiritualism history, pop culture history, and everything that's entwined with this American art form.
Everybody's got to be in touch with you, Brandon. How do they stay in touch with you to know when your book's released? Because listen, I'll be pushing it, you guys, on my website. But how do people know when it's going to be released for you? Do you have like a newsletter? What do you do?
Well, my website's not really the best way to. You can get in touch with me through there, but mysteriosplanchette.com. These days, Instagram is really my is sort of my enduring and most popular.
Okay.
Well, I say most popular, but compared to what I'm about to talk to. So you can find me. I have my Facebook page, which basically duplicates my Instagram stuff. I did withdraw a little bit from Instagram over the last couple of years. I used to post 5 days a week, as Karen knows, and I've got thousands of posts on there. And I started to get a little worn out from it, look for a new format. These days, I've partnered up with my best friend, my fortune-telling collector best friend, Brandy Knight, as well as my research assistant, who is a historian in her own right. She does macabre history with Olivia. And we have teamed up, and we're now doing at occult archaeology on TikTok.
Oh,
and
TikTok.
So we
I
are
was
now
going to ask you on TikTok. Okay, so everybody needs to follow you on TikTok and Instagram to know when this book is coming out.
So I'm at Mysterious Planchette on Instagram, which is my preferred social media platform. But TikTok blew up too. So at occult archaeology is I'm posting as part of a collaborative partnership there with two of my collaborators, and
excellent.
And it's obviously more video format, but we're doing these 1 minute history snippets, typically where we focus on a single item and go through its history, as well as some photographs and everything of the people behind it. And so yeah, it's been fun to explore that, but you're also at the mercy of the algorithm no matter where you go. And that's where I got burned out with Instagram, And I started to put those energies toward like really writing the book, not, you know, the sort of ongoing, have no, you know, unending research, but like, no, it's time to do it. And Karen, the illustrations are just, it's going to knock your socks off.
Well, that's what the Lilydale was telling me, how you were up there taking all these photos of their archives and stuff. And I was like, yep, that's Brandon. And then Jean has shared with me too. So I knew you were heavily into this.
Yeah. So Karen's also referring to not only personal work I've done there, but also I do preservation work with a website that's probably of interest to anyone here in the audience that's into this sort of thing. And it's a mouthful, so stick with me, but it's IAPSOP.com, IAPSOP.com. And that stands for the International Association for the Preservation of Spiritualist and Occult Periodicals. And yeah, it's a lot. But we have the world's largest, by manyfold, largest free digital database of historical documents pertaining to spiritualism and the occult.
Wendy, if you could do this link, or Jake, if you put this link down, I'm telling you, I've been to this website. Brandon sent me there many years ago. And I'm going to tell you, you can find everything on this spiritualist movement you want. Oh, everybody's there. So
it's basically, it's two archives. Well, it's multiple archives, but the main one, there's spiritualist books and spiritualist periodicals.
Yes.
All keyword searchable PDFs, free to download. So if you are interested in a subject, whether it be talking boards, seances, spirit trumpets, planchettes, look it up, and you are going to have a treasure trove of historical.
And I've actually referenced some of those articles I found in there in my books that I write. So it is a plethora of information. It is a consortium of what you need if you want to get into this information. So you guys need to write that down and send it to everybody. It's worth looking into.
IAPSOP.com.
Cool.
And it's just fun to just
go
through these old spiritualist newspapers and stuff. Check out the Light of Truth if you're typing in that website now. Just go to a random issue of Light of Truth. Go to the Banner of Light is fantastic. Just go look through the old ads for old mediums and distant healers and mesmerists, and it's just, you know, it's so much fun.
It's a rabbit hole. You go down.
I live in that stuff. Literally, on 5 days a week. Guys, I own 2 retail businesses. I own a candy shop, a very popular candy shop and toy store. And 5 days a week, I'm at home reading all that.
I don't know how you have time to do this, Brandon. Seriously, you guys, I've been to stores in Austin it's Congress, right? Is it on Congress?
Yeah, South Congress. Yeah.
You guys, it's the most popular place to be on Congress. The big top candy shop. What's that one called? Monkey See, Monkey Do?
Monkey See, Monkey Do.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Next to each other, you guys. This guy's a businessman. I don't know how he has time to do this stuff. But his stores are incredible.
I have good health.
God, go there and visit.
Awesome.
It's fun. And anybody who comes, heads to Austin, I'm more than happy to host visitors here at the archive and do so pretty regularly.
Cool. All right, guys, I think it's a trip to Austin.
Here we go.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what, I brought a bunch of girlfriends down there. Do you remember this, Brandon, several years back? You gave them a beautiful tour and gave them this whole talk about spiritualism. And they were just like, what? This is what you do, Karen? I'm like, well, kind of. Brandon's more into it than I am, but hey. And they were like, oh my God. They walked away going, wow.
Well, we're on different ends of it. You get your hands on these things in a different way than I do.
I'm a user of the tools.
You might find this funny. It's a quick Ouija story. My day job is I do enforcement.
I'm just going to hold some up randomly while you go, Mike. No, continue.
Cool. Stargazer, go ahead. Sorry,
Mike. It's a good one. But my day job is I do enforcement, and in my patrol vehicle, we all have the computers in the center, right? Like where we do our notes. And for the last 8 years, I've had the same desktop of a Ouija board, and I always leave it open. Oh, that one's cool. And it kind of creeps people out.
Are you saying you're a cop?
No.
You said enforcement. What does that mean?
I investigate animal cruelty.
Oh my God, bless your heart. Absolutely. Well, you're a cop for animals.
Basically, yeah.
Oh, bless
Thank you
your
for your
heart.
service. Mhm.
Yes.
So,
Well,
Mike, you said that you had a Ouija board story for us, didn't you?
I do.
oh.
I've always that, but I want to keep looking at your boards. I'll try to tell my
These are the
story.
best
You
boards, you
talk,
guys.
look,
These are like
talk, and I'll
Yeah. So this one would have been when I was about 16, 17 years old. We were classic teenagers involved in the occult, always loved the stuff and experimenting with seances, experimenting with meditations, and obviously Ouija boards, and we were doing a Ouija board one night. No drugs, no alcohol. We were just normal kids. And there were 4 of us, and 2 of us were on the board, and one of my friends said, "What's my worst fear?" And it spelled out white pit bull.
oh.
And classic, like a movie, you're moving it. No, you're moving it. You're moving it. And then no one was moving it. And then an hour later, it's summertime, so we probably 10 p.m. at night, we go walk to the store and we get Slurpees or whatnot, on a Saturday night during high school. And a white pit bull comes out of nowhere and corners that friend away from our group, growls, and then just kind of runs off.
Wow.
Yeah.
How soon after
Crazy.
you had that on the board? Was that pretty quickly after?
That was the same night.
Same night.
About an hour after.
Shut
Same
up.
night.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
That's
listen,
crazy.
guys, so these things happen,
Yeah.
right?
They do.
I mean, one thing I remember, I used to scoff when I would be in, and it's important, and Karen knows this story. I used to scoff in my historical research when I would read an account like that. I'd be
Okay.
like, yeah, right. Ha ha. My skeptical ass, yeah, right. But after I spoke at a conference in Gettysburg in 2012, I think.
Mhm.
It was a paranormal conference. And because I was a special guest, we were expected to sort of host one of the overnight ghost hunts.
I
And
know the story.
I,
Yep, you're right.
And I don't do the paranormal investigation stuff. So, but I was more than happy to go to this old house. It was an old boarding house called the Tilley House in Gettysburg, kind of famously haunted. And it was me. I was with Jeff Belanger, and we bring a board along, and we end up using it downstairs. And at some point, I mean, the planchette was just really moving, and I was like, I think it's time for me to get in on this. Still a skeptic, but let me get my fingers on it. And I did that. I had used it in high school, but I did that, and it was just so amazing to feel that sensation, particularly in a room where everybody's being very trustworthy and taking it very seriously.
Yep.
And to just feel that you're just so lightly touching it, there's just no, and everybody's just like their fingers are just barely on this thing, it's flying around. And we got, what seemed to be very valid, plausible, communications over the course of 4 hours. We worked on that thing for a while.
Wow.
And once you experience it that way, like you were talking about earlier with the table tipping, Mike, once you experience it in that way, it really changes your perception of other people's experience. And so I learned it was important for my research to not discount those historical accounts, but rather to respect them. We're no smarter with our iPhones and our laptops than Victoria. We know more, but do we really? They had the same brains we do.
Yeah.
And they were capable of objective thought and rationality and logistical assessment of what's going on. And sure, there were plenty of con artists in the spiritualist movement, but there were a lot of sincere believers too. And so I've learned to take those accounts with different grains of salt.
And it's funny looking back on that, because 3 out of my 4 friends were like, nope, never again. And they live the Disney lifestyle. They don't want anything to do with the dead, the occult. And me, I'm just like, give me more. And after that experience, I guess that started the road to my paranormal investigating. But it gave me such a respect for the occult. the unknown,
Absolutely.
Right.
and what you're actually dabbling with. Because what I like to say to people, spirits in the afterlife, they don't have a caller ID. So at the end of the day, you don't know who you're talking to. And you really got to respect the board, the planchette, or whatever you intend on using. And yeah, it's just amazing. Like your book, I've already bought it in my head twice.
Oh no, I bought his book like 5 times over, I think, already. I'm handing
trying
it
to
out.
work as fast as I can.
I'm handing it out already.
I'm wondering
Yeah.
if I'm going to have to sell a kidney to afford it, but
You might
hey,
have to, but it'll be
yeah.
worth it.
exactly right. That's exactly my thought.
It's going to be something else, and
I can't wait.
yeah, me neither. I
Dude,
need my
you guys,
baby-
there's nothing
my-
like
my
this
kid- yeah,
right now
I'm
out
gonna be
there.
like-
There's nothing like this. We've been waiting for Brandon to do this. There's nothing like this out there.
Yeah.
So this is needed.
I agree.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, my paranormal team name followed Brandon's Instagram account today. Like mine's, and I'm just watching like a hawk now.
I'm trying to get back around to posting. So I mean, it just got so hard the last year. Instagram, because they're trying to monetize it. Like Facebook bought them,
Right.
and I hate to use this platform to bitch about the algorithm, but like when you're a researcher, I'm not trying to sell anything. I mean, eventually I would like to sell some copies of a book,
Well,
but you know, you spend your time making these posts and doctoring the pictures and putting it all together. You've done the research, and then you post something, and it's like the algorithm decided you're not popular today, so
Not today.
Right.
You know, like I
Right.
got 6,000 followers, and like 20 people liked it. You're like, okay,
I'm still trying to figure TikTok out. Like one of our videos got like 375,000 views.
That's
and then,
big.
And then the rest are like 20.
No, we're the same way. But we've had, I think, 3 hit over 100,000. We have 16,000 followers in like 2 months. 3 hit over 100,000. But like 2 days ago, one of mine got like 200, and most of them get 3,000 to 6,000. And you're like, yeah, like if they would just even out, I would just get 3,000 to 6,000 across the board.
And the best part,
to you either get 100,000 or you get 40.
all of our heavy hitter TikToks that we've posted aren't even part of the genre. Like I'll say to my girlfriend who does our TikTok, I'm like, you posted true crime and it's beating our paranormal stuff. Or yeah, it's funny. Here we are talking about social media.
Well, my thing
Yeah,
is,
times. That's the
I don't
times.
even care about how many hits I have. I just
No.
post what I like, and I probably should be more attuned to the algorithms and what I don't even care. I don't even
But
care.
except, and I want to feel that way. Unfortunately, again, you want a payoff for the work.
Oh, you'll sell your books.
You know?
Don't worry about that. That's your payoff.
Well, yeah, but also the time I was putting into those posts,
True.
how I'm putting toward the book, because it's the same thing. You got to write it,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mhm.
And so when you're trying to do something informative and historical, you want people to appreciate it. And then when you get hung up because the program won't even let people see it, it gets frustrating. And after 2,200 posts on Instagram, it was
Thank God you have
time
real jobs, right? You have a real job.
Believe
Real
it.
business.
Yeah, except that now Brandy talked me into doing this damn TikTok, and now I have to make videos.
Oh
Like,
my
it's
God,
more
you're never gonna
time-consuming.
sleep,
I'm like,
Brandon.
no.
Producer and
Never.
editor. Put that on there. Producer and editor now too.
Yeah.
Business owner too.
Add to my resume.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's so intriguing. All of the history. I learned a lot with the conversation tonight, and I just keep staring at all your boards.
It's fun. I love it. And here's a fun one.
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
The Two Worlds telepathic spirit communicator. Ha ha ha. This is funny. Should I show this on air?
Yes,
Yeah.
let's see it. Yes.
So I recently traveled with this one, and as Karen knows, I can do an entire tabletop display with only carry-on luggage. My secret is a very large artist portfolio, and these boards.
Oh,
and
that's
planchettes
right. I learned that from
flat.
you. Yes.
And the other secret is that I wrap all these planchettes. I protect them by rolling up my clothes and using my clothes as padding. So without further ado, this was on the road recently.
I learned that
My
from
boxers.
you.
Yeah.
I'm a boxers man.
his little
Everybody
undies.
knows.
So the debate is settled. He wears boxers.
Yeah. I'm
They're
sure the
blue.
chat rooms were like, "You think Brandon's a boxers are brief kind of guy? What do you think?"
Well, we know
We're going to
now.
address that tonight. Well,
Whew,
mystery
so
solved.
glad
that's covered.
Lovers.
I was worried. Yeah.
So here we go. This is the. I'm trying to get.
Oh
All
gosh,
on
this is
track.
they're not. There's not too many of these that are in good shape either. Here we go.
Ooh.
Okay.
Which one is this one?
This is the Two Worlds telepathic spirit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it is, isn't it? Sorry.
It just slides back and forth. See, that's too
Mhm.
containing for me and the energy when I work with it. It's too containing.
Okay.
So that's fun.
Neat.
It
Now,
is neat.
Now,
What
do you have
era is
anything-
that from?
Oh.
So this was originally. I'll show you an original one.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we kind of lost part of you.
Okay.
Here you,
There we
there
go.
you, there you are. There you are.
No, it's funny. My phone just went into emergency battery mode, and
Ooh.
but it's plugged in, so we're
Oh,
burning through some energy tonight. I'm gonna switch my camera real quick
Sound effects.
to show you the original. So the original is an invention by this guy. W.
that's the
Braun.
one I've seen before of yours. That's the
Oh,
one.
cool.
Wow.
And Brahm created this
Look at
originally as
that.
the
Is that a
vertical
beauty?
indicator,
Yes, it is.
which was fancier. It had a great. It was just it had like a mahogany pointer that had some actual figure to it. And then he rebranded it and patented this in the UK in 1910. And you can see it's Brahm and Company there. The deal is he died about 6 weeks before the debut of this device.
No.
And yet it came out anyway. And then eventually it was either licensed or just straight up taken by the Two Worlds Corporation. Two Worlds Publishing published a fantastic spiritualist newspaper. And this is an assortment of their items. The Two Worlds Gazing Crystal.
Crystal ball, right.
One of their, sorry about the glare, but one of their spirit trumpets slathered in probably radioactive radium paint.
I see that.
You can see one of their ads there. And then their Two Worlds ball bearing planchette.
So what era are we talking about now? Is this early 1900s?
So he dies in 1910.
Okay.
This thing comes out and then it disappears. And then Two Worlds starts producing it, I think in 1916. They start producing it again.
Wow.
And it's on sale. This is from the 1930s. So it's still for sale in the 1930s.
Oh, wow.
So the cool thing you got to think about here, you guys, they're doing all these other spirit communication devices, and the Ouija board is out there being sold too.
Mhm.
So you have all these other tools you can use at the same time.
Amazing.
Very neat.
It is.
I have a question for actually both of you, because you guys are on the more analog side of spirit communication, meaning like not like a spirit box and stuff like that. In your guys' opinion, what's the difference between a modern day spirit box versus old fashioned, I'll just use Ouija board or
I'm
planchette?
thinking the personal interaction. I mean, the spirit box is a, you're watching that passively. You might be, I mean, you're walking around and stuff, but it's a passive interface.
Yeah.
As opposed to the Ouija board, which is a direct and active interface. You know, you are participating in and engaging with that mysterious movement. And
I want to segue to that too. When I use the planchette, I know it's me, my own abilities that allow it to move. And so like Brandon just said, there's an interface with it. There's this movement. Not that I'm consciously moving it, but does it pull? And you're like, Brandon, you talked about this earlier, how it just pulls you and you just follow it and you get this, there's an interaction there. Where with the spirit box, now I gotta say this now, I've been on a lot of investigations where they use the EVPs, they use the lighting up techniques, they use the Frank box, all these things. How do we not know that our own psychic energy or telepathy or kinesiology or whatever we're using could be psychokinesis, could be affecting it too? So I like to say we don't know that part, but at least with the Ouija board, we know our fingers are on the planchette. So there is this interactive thing. Now, when I do direct channeling, I do readings because I get like downloads of information. When I'm doing the board, it's more tangential. I can feel it and it's more in my hands and my fingers, my body. When I'm getting the information download through channeling or readings, it's like direct in my mind. Two very different ways of working. And I would say the same thing when I'm using these other tools. I'm more distant from it than I am with the board.
Okay, cool.
And I think that's really where we get our enduring popularity of these devices.
Yeah.
It's that intimate interaction.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense to me. Cool. I've never asked someone that specializes in the boards. I've always asked the ghost hunters that use the spirit boxes of what they thought the difference is with each. But I really liked your guys' answers with that.
I think that's a great question. A lot of people, not enough people ask that question because I think that's the key component. People go, "What's most important, the board or the planchette?" I go, "It's me.
Absolutely.
I'm the common denominator that allows any freaking board I work with, any device I work with. I can use Brandon's devices or any of his devices, crystal ball, whatever. It's myself being able to fine tune to work with the energies to allow that to work. So it's that interactive thing we have, like Brandon said, it's very personal and intimate now.
Yeah, that makes sense because you're putting your energy and intent into it.
Correct. And our abilities, whether we know we're doing it or not, our abilities are coming into play for sure.
Cool. Wow. Awesome.
Very much so.
Wasn't this fun, you guys? Didn't I tell you Brandon would just be the best guest?
Yes, absolutely.
I have about an hour's worth of more questions for next time. I've been writing. But cool.
Not even auto writing, but yeah.
But, all right.
When did they start putting the larger viewfinder or clear circle in the planchettes?
Like I have back here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
there you go. Thank you, Karen. That is an innovation that William Fold introduces. He patents that in 1915. And adds that. Really, what is driving that? And Karen, by the way, this whole, because I just wrote about the 1910s, this whole like Isaac Fold versus William narrative.
Oh, their little story, their little.
It's so wrong. No, what's been out there is has it wrong.
Dude, are you serious? Oh my God,
it's funny. But William Fold in the 1910s, there's a wave coming for the Ouija. The 1920s is probably the peak of its popularity in history. And I mean, it's just so ubiquitous. It's just everywhere. And but before you get there, the 1910s are really kind of a dry spell, and William Fold is doing a lot of things because what's happening is that his patents and trademarks are all expired, and Ouija has become a very common. In fact, I dare say Hasbro has no claim to Ouija. They do where they have registered it for like movie and film, but for talking boards, for anyone in the audience who cares about things like legal trademark dilution and copyright, like by the 1910s, William Fold knew he was in trouble. Like Ouija had become such a common household name, sort of like Kleenex, but his patent had expired years before. And the problem is that he continues to advertise using vague and misleading language that makes it sound like he's still legally protected with both the patent and the name. And as a result, he is in the background knowing that that ruse can't continue forever, and that competition is coming, because he's already had competition.
Oh yeah.
And so he's basically not pretending, he's lying in advertisements and in the press about his legal protective status that has been expired for, at this point, for about 10 years.
Wow.
And so these patents and claims, like he gets the Oracle trademark in 1902. He patents this window in the planchette as a new innovation and improvement, because improvements and innovations you can patent. He patents the black dot Oracle in this period. He patents the diamond-shaped planchette, which I had one of those on the mantle. You might have, keen-eyed viewers might have seen earlier. And that one also has a window in it. So he goes through sort of a new round of patents where he is trying to protect things like a planchette with a window in it. And so almost simultaneously, not only does his brother sue him, not the other way around, Karen.
Isaac sues him.
Isaac sues him.
Okay.
On the same day, J.M. Simmons sues him in Baltimore court for use of the Ouija. On the same day. So tell me what's going on there.
Yeah, well, because this is new information. Just telling you, he's laying out some stuff that nobody's heard before in the book.
And then
I don't know this.
So basically, just to give you some visuals here, because I have all three boards handy.
You guys, the brothers fought. There's a lot of backstory to this whole Ouija story. This is the reason why you want to get this book too, because there's going to be all this other stuff that was going on underneath of it, because that really what brought Ouija to the life what it has now.
So this is the proper Arid board. All three of these are.
Yeah.
So this is the Ouija design in about 1918.
I have
stuff
that
is
one.
going down, and it's Ouija. Well, this guy, he makes a Ouija too, and this is from that same era,
right?
And then these guys. And the dialogue on the Mickey Manitou is totally backward, too.
Yeah.
These guys also go after him a couple of years later, and because what happens is he's putting out warnings in the toy industry saying, "We will sue any patent infringers." Da da da. There's your patents out, buddy.
Drama, yeah, a lot of drama.
And he will advertise things like that board as patent, as patented and everything, in a misleading way. And Karen, even some of the planchettes carry, like for example, the window planchette. He patents that design. It's on Karen's background there, in 1915. It's wooden originally, but
this is like a circa 72.
It's a legal patent. So he puts the patent information on the planchette in a way that makes people think the Ouija itself is patented.
Oh,
okay.
That's why the planchette has all this patent information. So your casual user looks at it and thinks, oh, all this stuff is protected by a patent. The board isn't. The board has no patent.
See, what's interesting about that, you'd get away with that back then.
They sue William. William only brings up an old lawsuit from 1902 or 1904 against Isaac
in the courts,
and he revitalizes that as a counterpunch. But originally, Isaac and these other people are like, Ouija's a washed out term, and in the wake of that, that's where Isaac's PPF board comes from. And these other companies, they don't stop producing Ouija.
That's crazy.
Right there.
I like that one.
And yet the narrative that we see on a lot of social media posts and a lot of talking board history websites are, William Fuld was suing everybody over the
right.
It was, no, it was the opposite, because after that he gets in trouble. The judge agrees with Isaac and says these patent claims are shady stuff. That and the judge actually says in the lawsuit Now, his judgment wasn't binding in this, but he basically says, yeah, Ouija is a common term. And so anybody should be able to use it.
Like
He says it in
Kleenex.
the
It's
lawsuit.
become like Kleenex or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so companies do. Some
Yeah.
do their own thing, but there's not this like omnipresent threat of lawsuit. And it fizzles. You see the language change in the ads. William stops. He was pulling some shady stuff for about a decade.
This is the intrigue of what we're talking about. This spiritualist movement, the techniques and tools they use, especially the Ouija board, which is where I fall into more place. It's the fact that there's so much stuff still being uncovered, and we think we know it, and it keeps changing. So we have to be really open to the fluidity of the history coming forward. And I think that's beautiful. You're sharing this tonight because he's dropping some gems. He's dropped actually some bombs.
This is big. Like,
he's dropping bombs.
Prevalent. Yeah, I know.
Ouija bombs.
Casual.
Yeah, not O bombs, not F bombs. O bombs.
But when you've been out there with this history, and keep in mind, I'm not the only person in this game.
No.
And there are certain narratives that I see repeated
from
a certain source on social media over and over and over, because it spreads throughout a collecting community. And you're like, oh, I saw one just today. It's sort of like the Pythagoras thing. Karen knows.
Yes, China, ancient Greece.
Right. The Ouija board was invented in 500 BC by Pythagoras. And you can trace that falsehood right to its source. And yet it gets repeated and repeated and repeated. And there's modern examples of that too. There are modern Ouija history websites that have
I see it all the time. And I was writing one of my books about 2013. And this is when I started learning about Brandon and Jean and Merch and all these people from Talking About Historical Society, all these people that were doing the research. It was like I had to weed through it. And I go, who can I trust? It was like really difficult because there is some information out there that it started ancient Greece, China. But when you start researching it yourself, it falls flat. Here's another example, Brandon, you're going to like this one. When people say, oh, Ouija got negative just because of The Exorcist. Well, no. Ouija always had negativity associated with it from the get-go, and we could tell you the stories and the articles and the stuff that happened in court. So we have to. This is called.
We can go back to 1853.
Yes,
it's 1854 where Louis Cahanet is using a planchette, and it starts to cuss at him.
See,
and he says, "Who are you?" He said, and it says, "I'm the devil," and his spirit guide writes to him through another planchette saying you have to change the varnish on that one. The devil has possessed the varnish of your
it's
planchette.
It's like dueling planchettes. Yes, no, sock puppets, right?
Yeah, this is 120 years before The Exorcist.
Yes, you gotta understand this. So a lot of things you see out there, it's really important to read a lot of stuff. As Brandon's talking about, do the research yourself and don't just rely on one resource when they say, this is what happened with the Ouija board. This is what happened with the history of spiritualism. This is what happened with the planchette. You've got to really go to the source and do the research yourself and then look at many different places. Because it's still, like I said, it's evolving. And he's dropping bombs that I don't even know.
Love it.
Yeah. It's evolving. It's evolving because it's new. I mean, you got to think of the Ouija boards from 1890-ish, maybe 1886-ish, not ancient Greece and China. So we're just talking 150, 40 years. It's not that old. So we really have got to be astute and really look into this information. So when I ever give talks, I'm like, this is what we think now. This could change. I'll get back to you later. And I'm going to go and check out Brandon's book when it comes out.
I think this is where it's important too, where an actual degree and background in history and historical research is important, because you learn things like the fact that the Victorians had a penchant for there's nothing new in the modern era that the ancients didn't do better before. That's a running theme in Victorian historical writing. They're always trying to say, oh, that's not new. You know, this indigenous tribe in Africa was doing that centuries ago. That's a Victorian thing. And if you don't know that, you don't understand where this whole Pythagoras thing is even rooted in the first place.
Right.
You know, or to even look out for that stuff. It's really easy. You could just cite your source. You could just go and cite an 1890 source that says the Ouija was in it and just be done with it. Oh, this book from the 1890s.
I read it myself, and I had to keep researching because I go, that can't be it. You got to look at all angles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult. It's difficult. So I'm really looking forward to this consortium, this huge work, a volume that's going to come out, because we need this. And I guarantee, Brandon, you know this, you're going to put some stuff in there and something's going to shift again, or you're going to forget, or something's going to be added to it because it keeps evolving. It's so new, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
It'll definitely happen. And, you know, I'm trying to be as complete and exhaustive as possible, and also as neutral as possible. I'm not a particular fanboy of any, you know, even the Ouija, people behind Ouija. It's like, for one, they were just businessmen. Yeah, there's some interesting factoids here and there, but you know, for the most, and that's, again, there's a shift. It's way more fun for me when they are spiritualists going at it, you know, in seances and everything, and they're believers and they're doing this stuff, as opposed to, you know, as the book goes on, I have to find other channels to explore, because the spiritualist stuff is super fun and I think more meaningful. And you know, by the we're right now we're doing our final research for the 1940s, which is nice. So the stuff.
You guys, the 1940s had the coolest boards. It was like
Middle
Middle
they
East,
do.
Far East.
But we also, as
The
you
themes.
know, and
That's
we've
cool.
learned, these companies are also, it's strictly money. It is just so strictly, they aren't out there promoting themselves.
They're riding away.
They're not even bothering to incorporate. They call themselves Lee Industries Incorporated. We can find no incorporation paper, you know. Like, and then they're here and they're gone. Like they are just making their money and getting out.
We know Haskellite. Haskellite was around for a while, but you're right. It was just like they saw a wave of writing money. It was a wave of making. It was business decision. You know.
Yeah. Here's another
Fine.
fun 40s fact, Karen. You know, we often said the narrative has always been, in the wake of the loss of life in war.
Oh,
and
you're right.
Of this too, the Ouija board spikes in popularity. Well, all the headlines that say that date years before America even entered the war.
So we're talking about a civil war then?
No, we're talking about the Second World War. So we often say, well,
you're right.
You know, as soon as the Second World War was over and all these people died, the Ouija, you know, there was a heyday of Ouija in the 40s.
You're right.
Well, it started. Now, I think it was social anxiety that triggered it, but it's not the loss of life in war, because it's happening here in America. We're not even in the damn war.
Right.
Yeah.
But social anxiety makes more sense than loss of life.
God, this is going to be great. This is really rewriting some of the history here. This is great.
Wait.
This is what happens, you guys, when we start doing the research into this. And Brandon's a major researcher. That's all I got to say. This is what he does. So he's going to be shedding some new light.
Hired researcher.
Yeah, you are shifting.
Too many
it for
rabbit
us.
holes.
2 stores, 2 kids, 1 book.
A book this thick.
I'm thinking each chapter should be its own book.
Well, here's the deal. So I've thought about that. I've had people say, if it's going to be that big, because here's the deal. This is going to be hard to believe. Karen knows this to be true. I'm having to be conservative in the breadth of my writing.
Okay, he has a lot to say. I'm going to tell you.
Because I want to cover, if I have all this information on a company and the company's founder, and, you know, I want it all. I want every ad I've got in there.
Oh,
the book would literally be 1,000,000 words. I'm not exaggerating.
No, you're not.
I believe it.
And that's why I did that test chapter, because I'm like, okay, that's as big as it can be. It can only be about a 520 to 560 page book max, and like otherwise. So people have presented, well, Brandon, you know, what if you just split up into multiple volumes? What if the first one doesn't do well?
Okay. Well, this is my concern. This is my concern. You know, in books myself, and the pictures in there, the color, it's going to be super expensive for all those plates of pictures. You got to
Yeah.
sell that book
Yeah.
for a pretty penny.
Yeah. Well, you know what though?
What are you
I was
thinking?
I just contributed to the catalog for that
That's right, the Minnesota thing.
Minneapolis
Yeah.
Institute of Art book. It is 340 pages.
Oh, it's
I believe,
huge, right?
full color, big, huge, and it's $50. $50 book.
Okay, well then you got to work with your publisher and find out if you could sell it for about. I mean, I would probably spend $75 on it.
Yeah, that's something like that's the goal. And I look at other. I mean, I've got a bunch of big books that I
do
regularly
too.
flip through, for comparison purposes, and so that again,
I think it's going to boil down to cost. Here we are talking business, you guys. I think it's going to boil down to cost too, because you got to make it affordable.
Where is? Do any of you folks have any stories of boards or the like that went awry, or such that were rescued from people who claim to be having issues? And there went Mike. I certainly have firsthand. Karen can answer this one much better than I. She traffics in the world of true believers more closely than I do, and modern practitioners. But certainly tons of stories of. I mean, routinely for collectors, we run into people who don't want the boards.
Right.
I actually had a woman reach out to me with the only snitch baby we've ever seen. The snitch baby Ouija was sort of like that sly telepathic spirit communicator I showed earlier.
Okay.
And she reached out to me, wasn't for sale, but wanted more information. It was the first one we'd ever seen. And was talking to her. I asked her the age of her home, because she said she'd found it in the attic of her home. And as a result of me asking that question, the next morning, I get a very frantic call from this woman. She's coming to get it. She's coming to get it. I'm like, whoa, slow down. What's going on? Well, it turns out the attic of the home she found this device in didn't belong to her. She was a renter.
Oh.
And when I asked her about, it was in the attic of this home. How old is the home? She reached out to her landlord. The landlord said, why are you asking about it? She said, well, I found this Ouija board thing up there. Well, very conservative landlord.
Uh-oh.
And that was a family artifact that they didn't want in the family anymore. And they were coming to pick it up for the trash barrel.
Oh, that's a shame.
And it's the only one we've ever seen. And I frantically, and this was in, I think, Kentucky.
Oh my
Very
God.
conservative. So she said she would be willing to bring it to a photographer if I could find someone. So I'm calling photographer. I still have the paper. It has like 50, I'm not even exaggerating, like 50 local photographers scratched out. They were all like, oh no, I'm not touching a Ouija.
No.
I finally found someone, and I think her name was Christine, as I recall. And she agreed to photograph it. She took pictures of it that afternoon. That evening, the landlord stopped by, picked up the snitch baby, and threw it in the trash barrel.
I'm surprised you weren't on a plane flying out there and getting it, Brandon.
It wasn't for sale.
You could have taken it and got rid of the hexes and everything.
Yeah, and obviously at that point it wasn't hers. It would have been stolen property.
Oh, dude, that sucks. That's like a valuable thing to have. I'm glad you got a photo of it. But
yeah,
to
beautiful
have it,
photo. She did a great job.
Was that before the laws that say once something is put out at the street for trash, that it's no longer personal property? It's up for grabs? Or I'm not stating that quite right, but it's, I think,
except they burned it.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
The trash barrel, they burned it.
Isn't that sad? So we
Yeah.
hear
Yeah, it
stories
is.
like this.
It's cringy.
It is cringy. We get sent a lot of boards too. People don't want, and they come with the story. And last year at Michigan Paracon, we did a whole museum of boards that were like haunted boards, the stories behind them. People believe, and I'm not here to discount anybody's story, but I got to tell you, I've had nothing but great experiences on my board. You guys, I've been on your show before, talked about that. I have great experiences. I really think to each its own, and it's because of a lot of reasons. I don't know the answers. I'm just going to say, for me, my life view, my world view, how I view I see it as more positive maybe. So I have great experiences, but yeah, people have negative experiences. They want to get rid of the board. They have their superstitions or their beliefs or their Ouija-stitions, right? Brandon's Jean says the Ouija-stitions. And so, that all fathoms or caters into how you're going to, use this tool and what you're going to believe about it. So I've had really good experiences using the board, really good.
Well, and there are your legitimate bad bad situations, with actual spirits. And then there's, we used a spirit board and then went out and got into a car wreck. Well, were you drinking while you were using the spirit board?
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Was it a natural progression of circumstances? I don't know.
Yeah. And so what happens is a lot of times you'll see there'll be a Ouija board in the house or in the attic or in a closet. Maybe they didn't even know it was there, but something bad goes on in the house. Like you just mentioned, there was a car wreck, somebody died, there was this or that. And they go, oh my God, there was a Ouija board in the house. Was there a Ouija board in the house? Well, that's why it happened. So I find a lot of investigators go in and just go in with that assumption, because that's how they view the board from whatever superstitions, Ouija-stitions, however whatever their beliefs are, right? And they come in and they say, oh, there's a Ouija on your wall. Because I got Ouijas all over the place. So here I'm like, I got Ouijas everywhere. And I'm like, there's a Ouija there. Is this why that happened to me? And so people want to believe that because it's such an enigmatic tool. It's so mysterious in nature. There are no rules. So people project their own thoughts and beliefs upon it. This is why the Ouija has such a very powerful superstition about it, or stigma about it, because of that reason. It doesn't really.
It's the perfect scapegoat.
It is. It's perfect because it has no seriously rules behind it or whatever. We make them up as we go. So we go.
So much of it, especially with the Ouija-stition, so much of it is just like modern made up stuff. And here's an example that Jean and I were talking about today, Karen.
Oh,
holding up the planchette window to your eye to see ghosts. That was literally
in the movie.
For the movie.
Yep.
Yes. I think it's brilliant.
It was brilliant.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
But you can see actively on TikTok that is now an established belief, as if it has always been that way, and that it's a real thing, when in real time, just what did that movie came out? What, 20?
Oh, just recently, last 10 years?
Yep. Yeah. And in real time, we have seen a new Ouija-stition that you can see ghosts through the planchette.
Correct.
I think I heard it was you could see fairies.
Not a thing before 2014.
Well, what happens is you can see ghosts, you can see fairies, you can see anything that's supernatural through it. Right. And so that's what happened. It kind of becomes, and then you go, well, let's project it onto this too. Let's kind of make it broad base. So it becomes a lot of mystical things you can see through it. But yeah, it all came out in that Ouija, two Ouija movies ago. It came out when they started looking through it.
They will fight you over it. Like, you are wrong. Like, this has always been a thing.
I'm like, no.
Great grandmother was a Salem witch. You're like, what does that have to do? Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Because this board right here behind me is my picture of my 1972 circuit board I got in 1973. The first Ouija board I ever had. That was not a Ouija-stition back then. That was not something, you didn't go like this and only so you can see Panzuzu, or because that's when, The Exorcist came out. That just came out recently. So people tell me that went back further. No, it's a modern day mythology, folklore story created. And so you got to look at that. You got to look at these things and go, what's the origination of this?
Yep.
Yeah, you have to.
There was also the Charlie challenge.
Oh yes, right.
Another one made up for a movie.
Right. And everybody goes, that's real. Charlie, the pencil, that's real. Right.
My daughter was doing that in school, like grade 5, 6.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, that's like red rum. Red rum. Murder spelled backwards. Or you go to the mirror and you go red rum, red rum, red rum.
That was clever as hell.
70s, okay? So I grew up with that. 80s, 70s, 80s. Right,
funny.
Wendy, you know.
My daughter threw it in my face. I'm like, why are you doing the Charlie challenge? You've heard what it can do, like joking with her, right? She's like, well, you ghost hunt. I was like, okay.
Touche.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their belief system. True.
Yes.
Ooh, Dad.
Yeah.
Now, Chandler in the chat room is saying, Karen, he would love to work with you with a board session. Your energy is phenomenal.
Thank you. Well, listen, Chandler, I'm going to be in Virginia at the Sage Paracon end of May. And when I'm there, I do sit down with people individually. It's a small group. I don't know if you're going to be there, but I'm going to be there. Go to my website, KarenADahlman.com, read about it. I'm also going to be in the UK and then also at Michigan Paracon. And when I have an opportunity, I sit down with people and we use the board together. And I'm really big into teach people how to use it and how to have positive experiences with it. And I break through all those barriers of the we-justicians and the fear behind it. Because you guys, after all, it's a neutral tool. We do all the work. And I've been on the show talking about that before. I have, I think, only 85 boards. Listen, Brandon and all these, my friends, my colleagues at Talking Board Historical Society have hundreds and hundreds and thousands of boards. I don't have that many, but all you need is one. All you need is one board. And all these boards are around me, like Brandon's are. He has no weird activity in his house. I don't either. It's because it's how you choose to view. It's a tool. It's a neutral tool. So I appreciate that, Chandler. And come out to an event where I am and let's sit down and do the board.
Go to her website, Chandler, and Jake will drop a link for that as well, I'm sure. As Jake does.
And by the way, go to I have a YouTube channel. Brandon's been one of my guests on there. He's going to come back again. We're just talking about that tonight because he has so much more to share. Yeah. And he came on and we did, what did we do? We do a deep dive into the planchette, Brandon. That's what it's all we could focus on in that show. But come to my YouTube channel. I talk about with people like Brandon who really know their area of the unseen dimensions and just kind of paraphernalia and spirit communication. And then I get on there and show you how to use this tool with some of my board partners. And I interview people who actually use this tool too and get their insights. So come there and join me there. You'll learn a lot. Seriously. I think I have 220 videos plus. I don't know. Got so many now. It's not even funny.
It is. It's awesome. Great channel. I guess I overlooked that. I apologize. I don't always have the time to sit down and watch all of them. What? So I know. I should be ashamed.
Yes.
But all right. Well, it's about that time. Let's get your websites one more time if we can, and or how best to get a hold of you. TikTok, Instagram, the whole 9 yards.
You go,
Brandon?
Karen.
No, Brandon, you go first. You're the guest. I'm just here to support you.
Yes.
My website, for those interested in particularly planchette history, as well as some talking board history and spiritualist history, is mysteriousplanchette.com. And pretty much if you just Google Mysterious Planchette, you'll find not only my website, my Instagram is @MysteriousPlanchette, all one word. My old blog, which I haven't published in some time because those articles are now going toward the book. My newest endeavor is a partnership on TikTok with some other collaborator besties of mine, and that's at Occult Archeology on TikTok, Occult Archeology, and that's been a lot of fun. That's a new dimension of entertainment.
I'm so excited because I didn't know about the TikTok channel. I'm going to join you there. And you guys find me at KarenADahlman.com or Karen A Dahlman. I need social media and also on YouTube, Karen A Dahlman. And come see Brandon's interview with me there. We get more into details of the planchette, you guys.
We'll do
Fun stuff.
Nitty gritty.
Awesome. Fantastic. Mike?
Oh, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. The Paranormal Road Trippers.
Yeah.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Road trip to Austin.
I would love to. I can't stop staring at your background still. Like, where else will you find a guy, Brandon?
Oops.
Just
I'm still here.
So there's the three. We're talking about the patents. You're like, hold on. Here are the three boards. Wapow, wapow. That's good.
Well,
just let me reach down here. It was good.
I probably, again, you already saw my boxers. I probably shouldn't admit this, but right on the other side of this chair is what I call my COVID corner. It's all the boards I've collected pretty much during the pandemic.
Wow.
I had this spare corner. It was like my kids' play corner, and I started like, oh, I got a new board in, and I sat
Okay,
there,
I'm jealous. How many boards do
disinfected
you
the
have?
mail like we used to, and then leaned another one, and now it's yeah, now it's I'm going to show you. You know what?
I think
you need to now, since you brought it up. You have to.
The world's largest Ouija board quarantine.
Just piles.
Oh, those are beautiful. I love that round turquoise one.
Oh.
So yeah, that's my.
Brandon, how many are you up to now?
Neat.
I don't even count.
I'm gonna guess 250, maybe.
Boards. Yeah, I've got several hundred boards.
Okay, I only have like 85, and I'm like, I'm a collector with the least amount.
You poor, I don't think so. Poor thing, only 85.
I only have 85.
You can move in your home. It must be miserable. You know what color your walls are painted?
Right.
Rough light.
Jake, let's see yours. The one that the
oh
neat
yeah,
ones
Jake
you
has
got
boards.
recently.
I've seen his boards before.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
There he is.
No, so this past weekend I went up with my home crew of Barb Fitzgerald and Rachel Breivik and Melissa Becker, and we did divination weekend. And right now all my stuff's in the trunk of my car.
Oh.
So I don't have it. So I can just grab it. I'd have to go out to the garage.
But you're into the boards too.
Is it very far?
I did. I showed you like the classic
several.
board.
You showed me several that were unique.
Yeah. So we'll start with Elvira.
Yep.
The Elvira one.
Brand has Elvira. I guarantee.
Oh yeah, you got a spectral switchboard with Elvira on
it. Most collectors do.
Yeah, I mean it's popular. It's like the pinball, right? Let's see. But I have let's take a moment because my favorite, it's the cherry oak one that was made by a witch shop in Ukraine.
Yes.
Which has,
Witch shop.
Oh, geez.
I'm kidding.
That was a joke.
Okay.
Witch shop.
I had to close the pun. I'm not getting out of
that
here.
was real bad. That
Sorry.
was real bad joke right there. Yeah. Then I have this one called the Spiritus Colloquium. And with that one, it has a different shape to it. But it's the kind where you put the 3 coins on the bottom of it. So you are trading offer, to speak to the spirit, you put the coins on it for Karen. I think it's the name of the guy, the Riverman. Karen, Charon. Yeah.
Charon.
We'll go with Karen. That sounds good.
Okay, we'll go with Karen. Charon. Who knows Karen? Yeah. Anyway, so you put coins on it if you're not getting anything going, and you make an offering to the person that's delivering the spirits. And they have really cool planchettes. One's a skull, and we didn't talk about that with the different shapes of planchettes.
That's right.
Because we showed the fat bottom and heart-shaped ones. But these were shaped differently. One was a skull with it. And I forgot the shape of the other. The other one was more triangular, but it's not like your classic Ouija.
Right.
And they had pictures on it. So the skull one looked like a skull, but the other planchette was like a knight riding through an army of the dead. That was on the cover of the planchette. Anyway.
And we talked about last time the difference between Ouija boards, spirit boards, talking boards, which is a trademark name. And right now Brandon's kind of changing all that for us here.
Cool.
So anyway, you guys, it was the coolest thing about this when you get into this. okay, I have Ouija behind me, and Brandon showed us Ouija and different things. I know Mike has Ouija behind him. The truth is, there's so many, you can make your own. There's so many different kinds of spirit talking boards, and what Jake has mostly is the people made them for him. They're homemade, personally made, one of a kind kind of thing, or maybe just a few. Yours are not mass produced for the most part, except for Elvira. And so I have a lot of boards that are like that too, but I predominantly collect Ouijas. Because I just like Ouijas, but I do have a lot of spirit or talking boards too. So we talked about that last time. We got really into basic stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
What a good time.
Well, everybody's all quiet now.
Yeah, sorry.
We're all like shocked with Brandon showed us tonight.
I love
Well,
the
That's great.
planchettes. That was good.
It's been a great show. Thank you all so much for being here, watching, chatting,
Yep.
dropping links everywhere. Good job, Jake.
Thank you. I dropped a lot of links.
Thank you, Jake.
Awesome.
Well done.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
And
Well,
I guess with that,
have a good night, folks.
Hold on. We have to.
What?
we
Oh,
have
wait,
to say-
What?
Good. There we go.
That's
Oh,
right.
you gotta
Good
sign off, you
night.
guys. You must
Move.
always say goodbye.
bye.
That's right.
Thank you,
Farewell.
Brandon.
Thanks,
Farewell.
All
everyone.
right.
Go in
Bye,
peace.
you guys. Thank you for
Ciao.
having
Take
us
care.
tonight.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
And we're